Dear viewers, here we are finally. You will know the fight started with Eclipse Moon. Chapter 716. I choose Zhang Yi as the person in charge. Zhang Yi and his friends came earlier, so they found a place to wait. After a while, Bailey Chongqing arrived at the venue. When he saw Zhang Yi, he ran over to greet him. Hey, my captain. Why are you sitting here? Bailey Chongqing walked over with a smile, and then put his arm around Zhang Yi's shoulders affectionately. Zhang Yi looked a little lonely sitting here. At least compared to Gao Changkong and Tu Yunlai, who were popular, he did not look very impressive. Zhang Yi smiled faintly. Everyone likes to stir-fry something new, and no one likes to rehash something old. Even though I am a stranger from the outer city and have assumed the position of captain of Tengu, I am not likely to be noticed by the bigwigs in Blizzard City. Bailey Chongqing rubbed his bearded chin. It can't be helped. At any time, there will be a strict hierarchy of contempt. As an alien from the outer city, you are somewhat looked down upon in the eyes of most people in Blizzard City. You are even inferior to Gao Changkong, who climbed up from the bottom of Blizzard City. Let them see it as they please. Zhang Yi shook his head nonchalantly. By the way, Bailey, who do you think is better?
Zhang.
He raised a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth and looked at Bailey Chongqing. Bailey Chongqing's eyes wandered between the two circles, looking at Tu Yunlai and then at Gao Changkong, who was extremely popular. He sat next to Zhang Yi and whispered. Both of them submitted letters of request to Zhu Shuai, hoping to lead the operation to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon. But at present, it seems that the Samsara team has a much better chance. Because Liang Yue needs to defend Blizzard City, even though Tu Yunlai is very strong and has the ability to guide large-scale battles. But the safety of the top leaders still needs him to protect. So, if I have to choose one from these two, I still vote for Gao Changkong. Yang Xinxin suddenly said coldly, Are these the only two people you chose? Bailey Chongqing was stunned for a moment. Then he saw Zhang Yi's meaningful smile and realized that he had overlooked Zhang Yi. But Zhang Yi can be the leader of this operation? Bailey Chongqing laughed. Zhang Yi, stop it, okay? You are not that kind of person. Bailey Chongqing knew Zhang Yi and knew that he was not the kind of person who liked to fight for fame and fortune. If possible, Zhang Yi would rather lie dead at home than interfere in any tasks that did not concern him. After laughing, he said leisurely, What's more, you are from the outer city. I don't mean to look down on you, but in Blizzard City, people do have this kind of xenophobic sentiment. It is not visible at ordinary times, but it is particularly obvious at critical moments. He shrugged. Wasn't it the same in your Tianhai city at the beginning? Zhang Yi smiled and said, If you say it is, then it is. Not long after, Zhu Zheng brought Lan Xinqing and Sun Luxuan to the venue. Everyone immediately quieted down and greeted Zhu Zheng. Zhu Zheng waved to everyone and then asked them to sit down. Everyone looked at Zhu Zheng expectantly, waiting for him to announce the person in charge of the third encirclement and suppression plan. The power structure of Blizzard City will also change because of this. Whether it was Tu Yunlai or Gao Changkong, there was an expectant look in their eyes. Zhu Zheng came to the stage and began his speech. First, he summarized the reasons for the failure of the previous two encirclement and suppression plans and did some self-examination. But soon, he mentioned the gains from the two encirclement and suppression missions. Here, I want to praise one person. That is Zhang Yi from Tianhai City. In the second encirclement and suppression mission, he single-handedly killed 4 members of Eclipse Moon and saved the face of Jiangnan District. Because of this outstanding achievement, as well as Zhang Yi's personal courage and loyalty to Jiangnan District, I decided to form a new temporary investigation team with the Black Robe Investigation Team and the God Investigation Team as the core, named Tengu, and appoint Zhang Yi as the investigation team leader. As soon as these words came out, there was a lot of discussion below. However, everyone's expression was not too surprised. This news had long been rumored among the top leaders. Everyone also understood that such a new force was indeed needed. In addition, Zhang Yi had experience in fighting against Eclipse Moon and achieved excellent results. It was reasonable for him to be the team leader. But Zhu Zheng's next words made many people feel different. because Zhu Zheng did not mention Tu Yunlai and Gao Changkong at all, but kept promoting Zhang Yi's personal outstanding deeds, calling him a rare genius. From now on, for the sake of confidentiality of senior combatants, we will no longer call Zhang Yi by his name. Instead, we will call him by the code name Chaos, or, similarly, the elite members of other combat units will all be called by their corresponding code names. Those who have code names are all elites, such as members of the investigation team and team leaders and above in the Yenyun Guard, all of whom have corresponding titles. But in the past, these code names were only used during the execution of missions. However, the Tengu Squad is only a temporary organization, but they applied for a special code name for Zhang Yi. And the word from now on sounds unusual. Everyone listened to Zhu Zheng's tone and realized that the situation was a little subtle. Gao Changkong lowered his eyes, thinking. Tu Yunlai also frowned. What does Zhu Shui mean? Bailey Chongqing, who was sitting next to Zhang Yi, gradually became angry, and he looked down at Zhang Yi. He murmured in his heart, "No. Impossible?" Just as he had this thought, he heard Zhu Zheng's voice. According to my careful consideration, in the next operation to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon, the Tengu Squad will be the leader. The Samsara Squad will be responsible for cooperating with the Tengu Squad. And Zhang Yi is the highest commander on the battlefield. The Operations Command Center will provide battlefield guidance. As soon as these words came out, the whole venue exploded. Although they are all high-quality talents, they usually won't lose their composure in front of Zhu Zheng's high-level popularity, but the current situation surprised everyone and was beyond imagination. What? Let an alien from the outer city be the commander-in-chief of this operation. What qualifications does he have? Whether in terms of popularity or tactical skills, can he compare with Gao Changkong and Tu Yunlai? This is too much of a joke. But since Zhu Shui made this decision, he must have thought it through carefully. It seems that Zhang Yi is indeed extraordinary. Someone thought to himself. He was able to kill 4 members of Eclipse Moon, and his strength is not bad, but if he is asked to command people like Gao Changkong and Tu Yunlai, can he do it? Someone else quickly figured out the trick. Is Zhu Shui worried that his achievements will shock the master? So, he chose an alien from the outer city who is easy to control to take on important responsibilities. But if he is not capable enough and the third encirclement and suppression operation fails, the problem will be serious. Everyone had their own thoughts. Tu Yunlai was stunned, but soon regained his composure. As for Gao Changkong, Ji Yushin looked indignant and said excitedly, "Who is he? How can he be our commanders?" Gao Changkong shook his head at him. Master Zhu must have his reasons for making this decision. And I've also heard that Zhang Yi is unique. Gao Changkong has a good relationship with Bailey Chongqing, so he has heard of some of Zhang Yi's deeds. Chapter 7:17 A Battle That Cannot Be Lost. Zhang Yi looked calm. Zhu Zheng and Deng Yuanhua had already told him about this matter, so he was not surprised. On the contrary, Bailey Chongqing looked confused. He looked at Zhu Zheng on the stage, and then looked at Zhang Yi, who looked calm. Then he realized that Zhang Yi had known everything for a long time. He slapped his forehead. No wonder you agreed to accept the position of captain of the Tengu Squad. It turns out that Zhu Shui promised you such a big benefit. Once the mission of encircling and suppressing Eclipse Moon is successful, the reward Zhang Yi will get will undoubtedly be huge, and he will also be able to become a hero in the entire Jiangnan region. Even in the entire Huashu country, the legend about him will be circulated among the people. Ask yourself, if there is such an opportunity in front of you, Bailey Chongqing will rush to seize it. Zhu Zheng looked at Zhang Yi in the audience. "Captain Zhang Yi, come up and say a few words." Zhang Yi suddenly stood up and walked to the front stage under the gaze of everyone. His eyes swept over the people at the scene and said a lot of official words, which I will not repeat here. "I will do my best to take down these evil Ronin and safeguard the dignity of Jiangnan District and the entire China. It is our duty to revive the glory of the nation. Thank you. By the way, please call me by my title in the future instead of my real name." After the polite words, Zhang Yi walked down the podium calmly. At this special moment, Zhu Zheng did not waste time talking about too many things. The meeting ended quickly, and he kept Gao Changkong, Tu Yunlai and Zhang Yi to chat alone for a while. It was nothing more than asking Gao Changkong and Tu Yunlai to express their support for Zhang Yi's work. Tu Yunlai's attitude was very calm. As a professional soldier, he had his own ambitions, and he also doubted Zhang Yi's ability. But as long as the top leaders decided something, he would not go against it. Gao Changkong also smiled and said that he would obey the decision of the district and fully support Zhang Yi's work. Zhu Zheng looked at Zhang Yi. Next, your appointment as captain will be announced to the whole city, and you will be promoted as Chaos. This is our publicity, and you also need to contact the members of the team and seize the time to train. The most important thing is to get familiar with your team members and make them believe in you. Zhang Yi nodded. Of course, I understand this. But I want to ask, is there any news about Eclipse now? Zhu Zheng shook his head. After they disappeared, there has been no movement. We even suspect that they left the mainland from the harbor and went back to Neon to recruit soldiers. Zhang Yi frowned. Back to Neon's? Zhu Zheng said, after all, that is their base camp. He suddenly sneered. Relying on what they have done here, they must have a good appeal in Neon and can recruit more Ronin to come. It just so happens that I also want to fight a beautiful turnaround. Everything is unknown. Zhu Zheng said, take advantage of this time to get familiar with your team. He put his hand on Zhang Yi's shoulder and patted him hard twice, with expectations in his eyes. We will make you a hero, and you are the hope of the people of the entire Jiangnan region. So you must go all out. Don't be too stressed. This time our preparations are very solid. When necessary, Tu Yunlai and the Yanyan troops will also be dispatched. Zhang Yi's pupils were a little dilated. Even the Yanyan guards are going to be dispatched? The Yanyan guards are the most important force to defend Blizzard City. Once they leave Blizzard City, the defense of Blizzard City will be greatly reduced. It seems that this time, Zhu Zheng has really made up his mind. Zhu Zheng nodded. There are no enemies inside the region, and the enemies are all outside. I have made comprehensive preparations. You don't need to worry about this. Zhang Yi naturally didn't worry about Blizzard City. If the Yanyan guards led by Tu Yunlai, the Samsara squad, and their Tengu squad, it can be said that the armed forces dispatched this time are at least 3 times stronger than the last time. According to Zhang Yi's analysis of the combat power of the Tianhai squad, unless they find a more powerful helper, there is almost no possibility that the Jiangnan region will fail in this battle. Zhang Yi nodded, feeling relieved. I understand. At this time, Gao Changkong was drinking tea in the lounge on the first floor of the combat center. Sitting next to him were his girlfriend Gu Man and Bailey Chongqing. As for his deputy captain Ji Yushin, this person has always been impatient. Knowing that Zhang Yi was going to be the leader of the operation, he was quite resentful. So Gao Changkong sent him away. Bailey Chongqing looked at Gao Changkong and said with some regret, in terms of ability, you are more suitable than Zhang Yi to be the commander this time. But he didn't say the second half of the sentence, because that involved some complicated things inside Blizzard City. Bailey Chongqing had no way to change these. He didn't look down on Zhang Yi. It's just that as a commander, Zhang Yi is indeed not as good as Gao Changkong. It can even be said that Zhang Yi himself admitted this. However, Gao Changkong smiled and shook his head, as if he didn't care about it. But the fleeting regret in his eyes could not be perfectly concealed. Since it is the decision of the headquarters, there must be a purpose. Zhu Shuai can't joke about the safety of the region. No matter who becomes the commander-in-chief, I will try my best to cooperate. Bailey Chongqing smiled and said, it's just a title. When we really get to the battlefield, Zhang Yi will have to rely on you. Gu Man's Danfeng eyes showed a mischievous look. But this title is very important. Bailey Chongqing's face was a little helpless. That title is of course important. Leading a large army and defeating the Neon Ronin organization head-on. Such a reputation can allow a person to quickly rise in Blizzard City, gain a high reputation, and have the opportunity to enter the center of power. He is not a person who is greedy for reputation, and he has no interest in joining Blizzard City. Bailey Chongqing explained. Gao Changkong smiled slightly. Perhaps this is the reason for choosing him. Zhang Yi walked out of Zhu Zheng's office and met Yang Xinxin, who was drinking coffee outside, and the two went downstairs together. Arriving at the first floor, Bailey Chongqing, who had been waiting for a long time, waved hurriedly. "Hey, Zhang Yi. Over here." Zhang Yi saw Gao Chongkong and Gu Man and wondered what their attitudes were. Gao Chongkong must be disappointed, and he might also hold a grudge against Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi had made sufficient preparations, but since he was going to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon, communication with the leader of the Samsara Squad was unavoidable. Zhang Yi walked over and greeted them with a smile. "Captain Gao, Miss Gu, nice to see you again." Chapter 7:18 Death is Reincarnation. Seeing Zhang Yi, Gao Chongkong smiled politely. He extended his hand to Zhang Yi and said, "Zhang Yi, congratulations on becoming the captain of the Tengu Squad. We will be partners in the future. Please give me your guidance." Zhang Yi saw that Gao Chongkong's attitude was not bad, so he naturally shook hands with him. "I am only a temporary captain, and I will step down after completing the mission. Captain Gao will give me more guidance on the next action." Gao Chongkong said, No. Are you free today? I want to treat you to a meal, and we can talk about future cooperation." Zhang Yi certainly had no reason to refuse. Gao Chongkong treated them to a nice restaurant in Area A. At this time in Blizzard City, overly luxurious restaurants have been banned. Even people with status and position mostly go to small and medium-sized restaurants. The reason is to save food and resources. The consumption of the petty bourgeoisie is acceptable, but extravagance and waste are not allowed at this time, at least for most people. Zhang Yi still remembers the meal at the Deng family. 5 people came to an elegant restaurant. They did not ask for a private room, but just sat down in a secluded place by the window. After exchanging pleasantries, they ordered some food. Meat is relatively cheap here, but it is almost impossible to eat fresh meat. Vegetables are only dehydrated. They need to be steamed before cooking, and the taste will change completely. Even this is top-notch dining in Blizzard City. Ordinary people can only eat canned food on a daily basis. Except for Yang Xinxin, everyone else can drink a little wine. Gao Chongkong's girlfriend Gu Man is a lady from a noble family. Her words and deeds are very elegant, and she is not slow to drink. Gao Chongkong briefly explained his purpose. "I have already heard from Zhu Shui about Captain Zhang. Among the aliens of Eclipse Moon, there are some who can predict the future, but Captain Zhang can block the other party's ability. So, I hope to use this to formulate a battle plan, because I believe that the most important reason why the Celestial God team was defeated by Eclipse Moon is that the other party knew all their actions. I don't want to repeat the same mistake, so I would like to ask you to give me support in this regard when I take action." Zhang Yi nodded after hearing this and also said, "I am not an alien who is good at attacking. The commander asked me to lead the team only because I am more stable and I can block the other party's predictions. So when we fight Eclipse Moon, we will have to rely on you in terms of combat power." Gao Chongkong smiled slightly. "Speaking of which, the premise of cooperation is mutual understanding. And we are not clear about each other's abilities." He put down the white wine glass. "Then, let me introduce my abilities first." A hint of surprise flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Gao Chongkong wants to reveal his abilities to himself? That is the most important secret of every alien. Even the closest relatives may not know. "How can I say this?" "That's your precious secret," Zhang Yi said politely. "Who knows?" Gao Chongkong said. "In fact, my ability is not a secret." Seeing Zhang Yi's suspicious eyes, Gao Chongkong explained, "Blizzard City has collected complete information about aliens, especially our captain level. There are no secrets in the upper echelons. Everyone works in the same place, often contacts, and has opportunities to fight and cooperate. So it is impossible to hide everything. Besides, my ability is a bit special. Even if it is known, I am not worried." When Gao Chongkong said this, Zhang Yi glanced at Bailey Chongqing next to him, without leaving a trace. Bailey Chongqing smiled and said, "I can testify to this. It is true. Aren't you afraid of being known by others?" Zhang Yi became curious. Speaking of which, the abilities of Bian Junwu and Deng Shintong are also of this kind. Because they are too powerful, even if you know his ability, it is difficult to crack. Unless it is an alien with the same ability. Then I'm all ears, Zhang Yi said. Gao Changkong smiled and told about his ability. My ability is reincarnation. Death is reincarnation. Yes, that is the reincarnation of the reincarnation team. I can reincarnate between life and death. Whenever I die, I will return to a period of time before my death. Well, as for the time period, I will keep it a secret for a while. In short, generally speaking, I can't be killed. And I can collect intelligence in advance through reincarnation. This can help me turn danger into safety and effectively collect information about my opponents. After listening to this, Zhang Yi actually let out a long sigh on the spot. Another person with an ability that can't be killed. There was a Feng Guangyuan run in front, and here came another person with the ability of reincarnation. What the hell? Life in the Ice Age apocalypse from zero? These captain-level guys are more monstrous than each other. Hearing Zhang Yi's sigh, Bailey Chongqing couldn't help but complain, aren't you the same? Gao Changkong smiled and looked to Zhang Yi. My ability, in a sense, can actually circumvent the other party's predictions. He crossed his hands on the table, looking confident. I have studied the other party's ability. Although there are factors of causality in it, the scope of her predictions is limited. Otherwise, the female ninja would not have been killed by Deng Shintong. And the other 4 people would not have been killed by you. So, the other party's ability is not omniscient. If I encounter them, I can use the first opportunity to test their abilities and tactics, then trigger the reincarnation, and then change the fighting style to deal with it. Zhang Yi keenly discovered something. Your ability can only be triggered once? Gao Changkong nodded approvingly. Good insight. Starting from the timeline that triggers the reincarnation until the second time the same timeline is reached, this is the cycle. My ability can only be activated within 1 day. He gave an example. For example, if I activate my ability at this moment, 12:51 noon, then the next time I activate my ability, I need to wait until the timeline comes to the present again, and then another day, and then tomorrow at 12:51 noon before I can use it. These things are all recorded in the district. I have no need to deceive you. So please believe me. But even so, it is still a very abnormal ability. And Bailey Chongqing added at the right time. But so far, there are not many people who can trigger his ability. It is often he who triggers the ability actively. Zhang Yi nodded in understanding. He looked at Gao Changkong. That is to say, even if you don't use your ability, you are very strong. Gao Changkong smiled brightly and he spread his hands. If you want to be a captain, you can't rely on tricks alone. You need hard power. Chapter 7:19 Mutual Testing. Zhang Yi looked at Gao Changkong, who was sitting opposite him, with a gentle gaze. Gao Changkong was tall and handsome, and the sunshine and energy that basketball players bring to him easily gave people a positive impression. Zhang Yi drank a sip of Gujing Gong silently. Then I will also talk about my abilities. He briefly introduced his abilities. Except for the hidden skill of Spear of the Void, he told all the other skills in detail. Because it was meaningless to conceal this information, the Jiangnan district had already collected it. He could still give people a sense of openness by saying it. However, he only talked about the effects of the supernatural power, but avoided talking about the ability. For example, how destructive the power of the divine power is, and to what extent the maximum attack that the dimension gate can absorb and accommodate, and the distance of space shuttle, etc. He knew it in his heart, just like he had hidden the skill of Spear of the Void and the power of his supernatural power. Gao Changkong must have concealed something from him. Only knowing the characteristics of the ability but not the specific data may not be able to do anything about it. Gao Changkong also did not tell him how long the ability of death is reincarnation, can return to before death. Gao Changkong and Gu Man were silent for a moment after listening to Zhang Yi's explanation. Because according to the information provided by Zhang Yi, it can only be shown that Zhang Yi is an alien who is good at defense. If defense is 10, then attack can only be 1. Shunwei is indeed powerful, but other means of attack are not very good. Most of the time, Zhang Yi's offensive means rely heavily on firearms. However, they don't know the numerical value of Zhang Yi's current strength. So they don't understand how much lethality Zhang Yi has when he has his exclusive weapon Thunderstrike and spatial ability bonus, and adapts to the origin bullet. Both sides briefly explained their respective abilities and understood each other. In this way, even if there is cooperation in the future, they will not be ignorant of each other. In short, I hope we can cooperate well and complete this mission together. Eclipse Moon must be eliminated at any time, and it must be eliminated at any time. Only by eliminating Eclipse Moon can there be peace. Gao Changkong said to Zhang Yi with a serious face. Zhang Yi nodded. I have the same idea. Several people had a simple meal and chatted well. After all, there was Bailey Chongqing as a lubricant in the middle, so even if Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin didn't like to talk to strangers, the atmosphere wouldn't be too awkward. This meal was Gao Changkong's statement to Zhang Yi. It proved that he didn't feel resentful because he lost the initiative to act. It was not only for Zhang Yi to see, but also for the top leaders of Blizzard City to see. This was an attitude. After dinner, Zhang Yi took Yang Xinxin back to the villa. Along the way, his face was a little solemn. This made Yang Xinxin ask, "Brother, do you have any opinion of Gao Changkong?" Zhang Yi raised his head and smiled faintly. Not that I have any opinion. What does he have to do with me? It's just that I'm very interested in his abilities. Zhang Yi sat on the sofa, and Yang Xinxin sat next to him gently, staring at his profile with big eyes, shining like countless little stars. Zhang Yi leaned against the sofa and said leisurely, I was just wondering how far back in time his death is reincarnation ability can be restarted. If he can go back to 3 days ago every time he is reborn, it means that he will have 3 times the time of an ordinary person. 7 days ago, that's 7 times. 10 days ago, that's 10 times. Zhang Yi's eyes were solemn. In this way, as long as he keeps using this ability, he will get many times more time than others. Plus, he can know the trajectory of the future in advance, so there are countless things he can do. Even if it is just to improve his own strength, even if his talent is poor, he can become a first-class master. What's more, he is a basketball superstar and has a physique beyond ordinary people. So, Zhang Yi crossed his arms. The ability of the time bug must have given him amazing power. This is what Zhang Yi is worried about. People who have mastered the rules of time represent infinite possibilities. Their growth rate is much faster than others. Zhang Yi also somewhat understood why Gao Changkong was able to climb step by step from the bottom area to where he is today. But at this time, Yang Xinxin's mouth curled up slightly. She tilted her head slightly mischievously and asked slowly, But, brother, do you really believe the ability Gao Changkong described to you? Zhang Yi was slightly startled when he heard this. Gao Changkong will definitely not reveal everything to me. But there is no point in him lying to me about his ability. After all, his ability is not a big secret among the top leaders of Blizzard City. Yang Xinxin's black gemstone eyes turned. Well, but I always feel that his ability is very weird. Can humans really? Can he use his power to change the timeline of this world? This sentence brought Zhang Yi's thoughts back to the time when he was reborn. Zhang Yi nodded. Maybe it's really possible. Yang Xinxin didn't understand why Zhang Yi was so sure. But, according to what he said, he can distort time at will and constantly change history within the reincarnation cycle of a day. This is no longer the realm of humans. It's the realm of God, Yang Xinxin said slowly. Zhang Yi was silent for a long time. He just said, maybe his upper limit is not just a Delta-level alien. But who knows? He shrugged his shoulders. It is difficult to verify the truth of other people's abilities, especially those related to the field of time. After all, he can reincarnate, but you can't. Ah. It seems that Zhang Yi can also. However, now, he has not discovered the unlocking code for his ability in this area. You can't let yourself die for an experiment, right? That would be too much. Anyway, there is no need to consider this issue now. I am the captain of the Tengu team, and I need to meet with my team members next. We also need to integrate the Black Robe team with the God team for training, so as to deal with the Eclipse moon that may appear again, at any time. Zhang Yi has no personal grudges with the Samsara team, so there is no need to be too defensive against them. At most, they may compete with him for credit when carrying out the mission. But Zhang Yi is sure of one thing. They have no disagreement on the matter of destroying the Eclipse moon. Just when Zhang Yi was thinking about how to integrate the team, a movement to create a god for him quietly began in Blizzard City. Chapter 720. The Gods Reside. Very abruptly, in the entire Blizzard City, news about the captain of the Tengu team, Chaos, swept the entire social network. It is said that this new investigation captain was born in poverty, with an ordinary family background, and was a stranger from the outer city. However, he relied on his strong ability and excellent character to fight for a place in his city. It is said that he has been smart and talented since he was a child, and is deeply loved by the majority of neighbors. It is said that he has excellent academic performance, but his family is poor when he was young. The old and young men in the village collected 100 eggs to support him to go to college. After returning from school, he caught up with the arrival of the end of the world. In order to protect the land that gave birth to him and repay the neighbors who helped him, he resolutely took on the responsibility of the guardian of Tianhai City. It was him who protected the peace of the city. It was him who thwarted the conspiracy of the snow worship in danger. It was him who fought against 4 people in the mission of encircling and suppressing the Eclipse moon and killed 4 Eclipse moon villains. And this person, he walks in the darkness, guarding the light of the people in the Jiangnan region. But even though he did so many touching things, he was unwilling to leave his name. When people asked him his name, he only had one answer: I am just an ordinary person who protects peace in one area. He is the hero of the Jiangnan district, a civilian hero codenamed Chaos. Since the morning news, Blizzard City has spared no effort to use all channels to publicize Zhang Yi's deeds. However, all the key information about Zhang Yi was concealed as Zhang Yi requested. His place of origin, name, and date of birth are all unknown. Only by achieving this level of confidentiality can the disclosure of Zhang Yi's own information be avoided to the greatest extent. However, the means of public opinion obviously worked. Because the propaganda department of Blizzard City tailored a heroic image for Zhang Yi, who was born in poverty but had feelings and righteousness, it soon attracted the attention of all the people in Blizzard City. As a result, Gao Changkong's aura of a civilian hero was weakened a lot. The alien from the outer city actually killed 4 people in the mission of encircling and suppressing Eclipse Moon. Didn't I hear that a total of 5 members of Eclipse Moon were killed? Were killed by this chaos alone. My god, doesn't that mean he is more powerful than the God Squad? Deng Shuntong is not as good as him. There is such a powerful alien in the outer city. That's great. There are indeed many talents on the land of Huashu country. Even in the end of the world, there are heroes who stand up and save the people from the water and fire. To put it bluntly, the aliens from the outer city are of lower origin than those in District E in the eyes of the people of Blizzard City. So for a while, Zhang Yi became an inspirational model. People would say, look, people can grow up in such a difficult environment outside. What reason do you have not to work hard? Although some people still doubt that this chaos is just a cover pushed by the top leaders of Blizzard City. But Zhang Yi's achievements are real and impeccable. He did make great contributions in Tianhai City and the mission of encircling and suppressing Eclipse Moon. Even if someone wanted to find fault, they couldn't find any. Under such an aura, everyone wanted to see the legendary alien from the outer city with their own eyes. Even though he lived in Area A, on weekdays, the ladies and ladies of the high-level families would run to the vicinity and watch quietly. Some people even wanted to use their connections to invite Zhang Yi to have lunch at their homes. Lan Xincheng had people help Zhang Yi to block these problems. After all, he was not made a god to make him a veteran in the flower garden, but to facilitate the subsequent execution of tasks. On the other hand, in the underground laboratory of Deng Garden, the experiment tailored for Liang Yue finally came to an end. She stayed in the experimental cabin for 3 whole days and went through many human body transformation experiments. The process required so much pain that ordinary people could not imagine. However, Liang Yue relied on her well-trained physique and extraordinary will to endure all of this. And then it was time to test the results of the experiment. In the underground laboratory of Deng's manor, in a huge white experimental space. Liang Yue was wearing a black tights with various data collectors attached to it. She looked no different from before, because her body had been trained to the extreme.
She
started practicing martial arts at the age of 3 and has been training every day for decades, rain or shine. This made her body the best killing machine. Combined with her iron will, she became the best test subject. Outside the laboratory, behind the bulletproof glass, stood a large group of researchers in white coats. Deng Yuanbo and Lianqing stood here, quietly observing the results of the experiment. A researcher said to the microphone, "Ms. Liang, please start the third impact test." Liang Yue twisted her wrist and then looked at the pile of huge experimental equipment around her. Grip tester, speed tester, strength tester. All kinds of equipment are specially made for the use of aliens. Liang Yue walked to a barbell. Both ends of the barbell were piled with weights, weighing several thousand kilograms. But she bent down slightly and then lifted it up with one hand. In the speed test, the sonic boom caused by the full-out sprint shattered the instruments. And the instrument for testing strength couldn't even withstand her punch. The tester looked at the big red error on the computer and said helplessly to Deng Yuanbo, "This is the third time. It's not that there is a problem with the data. It's that her strength has exceeded the limit of our experiment. This effect is the first time in history. It even exceeds the son of Shentong and Liao Honglei." He raised his black-framed glasses and looked at the woman in the laboratory, who was surrounded by steaming blue smoke. "There is a god in her body." Deng Yuanbo's breathing became heavier. He looked at the unpolished jade in the laboratory and was actually a little envious of Zhang Yi. A person with such qualifications was actually included in his team. At the same time, he sighed, "It's a waste of talent." If Liang Yue could be given to them for training, then in the half-year of the end of the world, Liang Yue would definitely become another captain-level figure. She had really been wasted for too long. However, he thought again, isn't Zhang Yi also a terrifying freak? Forget it. Let's not target her for now. Make friends with Zhang Yi, and if I need them in the future, I can naturally use them for my own benefit. Deng Yuanbo thought secretly in his heart. He turned his head and told Lianqing, "Let Zhang Yi come and pick them up." Chapter 721 New Liang Yue. The sky was gloomy and snowflakes were flying. This endless snow had been falling for half a year, and it seemed that it would not stop. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin came to Deng Garden. They were waiting in Deng Yuanbo's living room. Although Zhang Yi tried to keep his face calm, his eyes that looked out the door from time to time revealed his inner tension and expectation. What will Liang Yue become? He thought to himself, with some expectation and some nervousness. Not long after, he saw Liang Yue. Deng Yuanbo and Lianqing brought Liang Yue here. On the way, Zhang Yi had already heard bursts of laughter. It seemed that they were chatting very harmoniously. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin saw Liang Yue. She was still the same as before, with heroic eyebrows raised, hair tied into a high ponytail, and a white tights wrapped around her body that was trained to the right degree. It seems that there has not been much change. However, the essence of a person sometimes needs to look at the essence, without looking at the appearance. Zhang Yi knew that her inner self must have become different. As soon as she saw Liang Yue, Yang Xinxin ran over excitedly and hugged her teacher. "Teacher Liang, are you okay?" Although Zhang Yi also wanted to ask Liang Yue about the experiment, he suppressed his impulse after glancing at Deng Yuanbo and Lianqing next to him. He walked to Liang Yue slowly. "How is it? Are you feeling okay now?" Liang Yue raised her head to meet Zhang Yi's gaze. She smiled slightly and nodded. "I feel very good now. I have to thank Mr. Deng for his help." Zhang Yi thought to himself, it seems that Liang Yue's strength has been greatly improved. At the moment there are outsiders, so he didn't talk about too much details. Instead, he smiled and looked at Deng Yuanbo. "Mr. Deng, thank you very much." Deng Yuanbo smiled and said, "This is what we agreed on. I said that if you can solve Eclipse Moon, we will both benefit." Zhang Yi smiled and said, "Since you said so, I won't be polite to you." Looking at Liang Yue, Zhang Yi suddenly thought in his heart, if he could let everyone around him go through the transformation of the Deng family, would the overall strength of his team be improved by several levels? With this idea in mind, Zhang Yi said it while Deng Yuanbua needed him. After listening to it, Deng Yuanbua's smile became more intense. At this time, Lianqing, the housekeeper beside him, explained to him, Mr. Zhang, you may not understand how much resources we need to spend to improve the strength of an alien. And this kind of experimental process is not something that everyone can bear. Zhang Yi sighed. I see.
I said it wouldn't be that simple.
Deng Yuanbua said with a smile, although we can't make them make such great progress in a short period of time like Miss Liang. But we can still help them improve their bodies and improve some of their strength.
Zhang Yi
smiled slightly and had some calculations in his mind. He was just asking and he didn't know the rules and directly asked for requests. Because this can only be an exchange of interests, and he has no friendship with the Deng family, it is impossible for them to help him for no reason. I know, I hope we will have a chance to work together in the future. Deng Yuanbua and Zhang Yi exchanged a few words casually, and he didn't make any requests. He was as friendly as an NPC who came here to give buffs. But Zhang Yi didn't dare to underestimate him. This old fox is much better at playing power than him. Zhang Yi found an excuse and left with his people. Deng Yuanbua did not stop them. Instead, he enthusiastically asked Lianqing to send them outside, and asked the Deng family's car to take them back to their residence. Before leaving, he handed Zhang Yi a gold brooch, and told him that it was a relic of Deng Shintong. With it, it will be much easier to integrate the members of the Tianhai team. Zhang Yi couldn't help but sigh that Deng Yuanbua's consideration was really thoughtful. But for him, taming a few subordinates did not require borrowing power. Along the way, because there was a driver from the Deng family, Zhang Yi did not ask Liang Yue too many questions. But as soon as he got home, Zhang Yi couldn't shut up. He asked very curiously, what is the Deng family's experiment? What level have you improved your strength to now? Do you feel any physical discomfort? Liang Yue took off her coat and put it on the rack. Seeing Zhang Yi's expectant and nervous expression, she smiled. The experiment was very strange. They put me in a transparent plexiglass chamber. Then they injected me with some drugs and took some very strange actions. Recalling the experiment, Liang Yue felt a chill in her blood vessels. She shuddered suddenly. I felt like I was reborn. It means literally I was really reborn. In 3 days, my skin was completely replaced, and even my blood and organs showed obvious changes. Because I need to stay awake for a long time, so that kind of feeling is not something that ordinary people can bear. Liang Yue's face was very serious. Zhang Yi couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Is it so painful? Liang Yue nodded. If it is a person with poor physical fitness or insufficient willpower, he may die in the middle of the experiment, or have a mental breakdown. Yang Xinxin couldn't help but walk over and gently hugged her body. Teacher Liang, it turns out that you have suffered so much. Yang Xinxin's tone was full of heartache. She still respected this simple and kind teacher very much. Zhang Yi couldn't help but be silent. When Deng Yuanbua talked to him about this matter, he didn't mention the pain he endured during the experiment. But he said that he had high requirements for the candidates. And he specifically chose Liang Yue. Zhang Yi originally thought that it was because he only brought Liang Yue and Yang Xinxin to Blizzard City. Now it seems that it is not that simple at all. Because this kind of experiment of forcing growth is not something that ordinary people can bear. Zhang Yi looked at Liang Yue. You have suffered. But Liang Yue smiled and shook her head. This was originally my own choice. They also reminded me before the experiment. Although the process was very painful, my gains were also huge. She clenched her fists, and the new strength she gained surprised herself. For the first time in her life, she felt that this body was like a sports car with a full tank of fuel, and she could run at full speed. Zhang Yi stared at Liang Yue and began to measure her current real combat power in his heart. Liang Yue's combat skills need not be said much, and they are already in a full state. The only shortcoming is that she has devoured too few aliens, resulting in her combat power being only at the ordinary Delta level. According to Zhang Yi's inference, Liang Yue's previous comprehensive ability level was actually similar to that of Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, and others. So now, what is her combat power level? A plan quietly emerged in Zhang Yi's mind. A sly smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. I think I should find an opponent for you to experiment with. The opponent Zhang Yi was talking about was naturally a member of his Tengu team. Chapter 7:22 Provocation. The next day, at the training ground on the first floor of the basement of the combat center, Zhang Yi called all the members of the Tengu team to gather here. He convened the first puppies team meeting. Needless to say, the Black Robe team had a good relationship with Zhang Yi, and with the help of Bailey Chongqing, everyone could naturally accept Zhang Yi's leadership. However, the situation was different for the Heavenly God team. Deng Shintong had a great influence on them. He was powerful, talented, and had a very strong personality. Zhu Zheng once said that he had a great character. Such a captain, who happened to be a rich second generation with a huge fortune, was very generous to his subordinates. Who could not like him? Not long after Deng Shintong died in battle, an unknown alien from the outer city came to take his place. The remaining 3 members of the Heavenly God team were a little resentful. The huge training ground was very empty. On weekdays, each team would train here. The agreed time was 9 o'clock in the morning. Zhang Yi brought Yang Xinxin, Liang Yue, and Huahua to the training ground. The 6 members of the Black Robe team have arrived here on time. Bailey Chongqing waved enthusiastically and greeted Zhang Yi. Captain, everyone on our side is here. Wu Di and others looked at Zhang Yi with a lot of emotion in their eyes. Not long ago, Zhang Yi was just the leader of a force in Tianhai City. But now he has become their leader. It can only be said that after the end of the world, more and more people can quickly rise to power with their own abilities. And the situation of seniority is becoming less and less. Zhang Yi came over and swept his eyes across the scene. He only saw the people of the Black Robe team. But he didn't see the 3 members of the God team on the list. He already knew in his heart that the 3 guys must be dissatisfied with him being the captain and deliberately showed him his color. The information of the 3 people emerged in Zhang Yi's mind. As the captain, he has already figured out the abilities of each team member. He also knows the 3 people very well. The 3 people who survived are Yihe, Xuemiao, and Luinghao. Among these 3 people, Luinghao is the alien at the bottom of the God team. Yihe's strength is close to the middle level, while Xuemiao is at the lower middle level. The reason why the 3 of them are alive is largely due to luck. Because in that battle, the top masters of the Tianhai team all chose the most difficult opponents. When Deng Shintong died in the battle, the headquarters asked them to retreat in time, which saved their lives. Zhang Yi pretended to look at his watch. It was 8:52, and there were still 8 minutes before the time he set. Zhang Yi walked slowly in front of the crowd and said lightly, "Wait for the others." After that, he didn't say much. Wu Di stood by the equipment rack and said to Kongxing next to him with a smile, "Just watch. Those guys in the Tianhai team must want to show Zhang Yi their power." Kongxing shook his head. They have always been like this in the Tianhai team, never taking others seriously. Although the mission to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon failed, it is difficult for them to quickly adjust their arrogant and conceited emotions. People are always used to immersing themselves in the glory of the past. Zhang Yi waited until after 9 o'clock, but still did not see the 3 people arrive at the scene. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then he clapped his hands. "Everyone come here, I have a few words to say." Bailey Chongqing brought several people from the Black Robe team to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi stretched out his hand and introduced Yang Xinxin and Liang Yue to them. Everyone is familiar with each other, so I won't introduce them anymore. From now on, they will also be members of the Tengu team. Bailey Chongqing and others looked at Liang Yue and Yang Xinxin, their eyes full of surprise. Because when they were in Tianhai City, Liang Yue's combat effectiveness was far from the first-class level. At best, it was the same level as Wei Dinghai and Xiao Honglian. As for Yang Xinxin, she was not even an alien in the past. A group of people were a little suspicious, but no one raised any objections. Because in the era of great mutation, a man should be revisited after 3 days of separation. You never know how strong an ordinary person will become after awakening his superpowers. Zhang Yi raised his wrist, glanced at his Rolex, and asked calmly, "Bailey, according to the rules of the investigation team. What should be done if you are late for the assembly? Bailey Chongqing heard this and chuckled. According to the rules, you will be given a serious demerit and publicly review in front of the whole team. The investigation team is a special force. The tasks they perform are of great responsibility and may even endanger the safety of the entire Jiangnan region. Therefore, their discipline is even stricter. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and said meaningfully, "Oh, the punishment is quite severe. The 3 guys on the list who didn't come will be executed according to this." The members of the black robe team looked at each other, looking gloating. Because if you are given 2 serious demerits, you will be expelled from the investigation team according to the rules. Is this how Zhang Yi plays on his first day in office? Bailey Chongqing said in a deep voice, "Yes.
Discipline is discipline.
Once it is violated, there will be punishment without any reason. This is the iron law of the military." At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from above his head.
Hey, I say.
Who is late? Zhang Yi's smile became more and more obvious, and he raised his head to look up. On the second floor of the training ground, 3 men in silver battlesuits looked down, and each of them was full of provocation on their faces. This was contempt for the new captain they disliked. Hey, you're Chaos, right? What a tacky name. Since you want to learn to be a captain, at least don't make such a low-level mistake. You can't scare people by giving them a serious demerit at every turn. The 2 people next to him also sneered. Zhang Yi was unmoved and continued to say to Bailey Chongqing, "Do it according to the regulations. Count them as late." The faces of the 3 people changed immediately. They didn't expect Zhang Yi to dare to play like this. A stranger from the outer city, who had just arrived and was lucky enough to become a temporary captain, really dared to ignore them? "Hey, what are you doing? Aren't we here?" Yi He, one of the 3, shouted to the people below. "If I didn't see it, it doesn't count," Zhang Yi said indifferently. "I give you 10 seconds to stand in front of me immediately, otherwise, you don't need to stay in my team." A few guys who were at the bottom of the Tianhai team dared to show off to him. If he didn't teach them a lesson, they wouldn't know who was the big and small king. The faces of the 3 people became extremely ugly. They wanted to teach Zhang Yi a lesson, but Zhang Yi did it so decisively. Chapter 723 Challenge. Zhang Yi looked at the plain and boring Rolex on his hand and counted the movement of the second hand. The 3 people dared not play with fire anymore. Xue Miao grabbed Yi He and Luing Hao's arms, and the whole person flew into the air, and a whirlwind suddenly surrounded them. The 3 people landed from a high altitude and landed safely in front of Zhang Yi and others. Zhang Yi looked at the second hand and said with some regret, "What a pity." Yi He and the other 2 stared at Zhang Yi, and the unconvinced spirit was obvious to anyone who was not a fool. Yi He hugged his arms and said to Zhang Yi, "Hundan, you have such a great official power. You played the game of using power to suppress people with us when you took office. Awesome." The words were full of sarcasm. He deliberately read the 3 words, Hundan, heavily, because he believed that people who chose this code name were all timid and cowardly little people. The truly powerful people should choose a majestic code name like their captain. And the code name exclusive to Deng Shintong is Erlang Shenyang Jian. Zhang Yi looked at the 3 people in front of him coldly. This situation was completely within his expectations. The people in the black robe team said nothing, but they looked like they were watching a good show. Although they knew that Zhang Yi was very strong, it was not enough to be a good captain. He also needed to have a strong ability to control his subordinates. If Zhang Yi couldn't even manage these 3 people today, let alone lead them to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon in the future. Zhang Yi stared at the 3 people, his eyes were as cold as a knife, and finally his eyes looked at Yi He. It was obvious that Yi He was the leader of the 3 people. After beating him, the other 2 people were also honest. "Did I let you speak?" Zhang Yi didn't yell loudly like the general instructors. He was afraid of hurting his throat. He just said in a cold tone, "Next time before you speak, shout report first. I allow you to speak before you speak." Yi He raised the corner of his mouth. "Report." "Shut up." Zhang Yi shouted angrily and interrupted him. "Did I allow you to speak?"
You?
Yi He was also angry. He looked down on Zhang Yi. the captain who was suddenly promoted. Seeing that Zhang Yi was deliberately targeting him, he simply stopped pretending. What's the big deal? With someone like you as the captain, I don't want to be a member of this shitty investigation team anymore. Zhang Yi didn't even raise his eyelids. If you don't want to do it anymore, you can get out now. Anyway, there are fewer people. He can ask Lao Zhu to help him add some. With so many people in Yanyanwei, it shouldn't be difficult to add a few masters. Xue Miao and Lu Yinghao changed their faces and hurriedly pulled Yi He's arm to persuade him. Don't be impulsive. If you leave, you will fall into his trap. Even if we want to leave, we can't leave so cowardly. Otherwise, wouldn't it lose the reputation of the Tianhai team? Xue Miao and Lu Yinghao's family background is not as good as Yi He's. Even if Yi He walks out of here, at the very least, his family can arrange for him to work in other positions. But for Xue Miao and Lu Yinghao, they are the pillars of the family. Once they are no longer members of the investigation team, the quality of life of their entire family will be greatly reduced. Not everyone can afford to quit without a job. You need to know your own worth. So the two tried their best to dissuade Yi He from playing too much. They followed Yi He to make trouble, just to gain more rights and interests after joining the new investigation team. When mentioning the God team, a look of pain flashed in Yi He's eyes. The glory of the past and the glorious and majestic figure of Deng Shintong emerged in his mind. Now that the bodies of Deng Shintong and other team members are still warm, they are thrown into a hybrid team like garbage. How can Yi He not be in pain? He even felt that he had been abandoned by the region. Otherwise, why find an unknown alien from the outer city to be the captain? The people in the black robe team next to him were watching jokingly. Yi He gritted his teeth and made a decision in his heart. Even if he wanted to leave, he couldn't leave like this, so as not to be ridiculed in the future. So he pointed at Zhang Yi and said, "Hey, aren't you the captain of the Tengu team? Let me see today if you are qualified to be the captain." Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. "Oh, do you need to tell me whether I am qualified or not? Who do you think you are? You don't try to be so good at talking." Yi He stared at Zhang Yi and sneered. There is such a clause in the rules and regulations of the investigation team. The captain of the investigation team must accept the challenge of the team members. If he fails, he will lose his position as the captain. This challenge cannot be refused. Now I am still a member of the Tengu team, so the smile on his lips became more intense. Accept my challenge.
Chaos.
Zhang Yi was silent for a moment. He was not afraid, but he was a little confused. Is it because he has been in a large unit for a long time? Easy to become stupid? You want to fight me? Zhang Yi pointed at his nose and asked in disbelief. Even if he was not good enough, he might be appointed as the captain by Zhu Zheng himself. Even if he thought about it with his toes, he knew that he could not be weak, right? Yi He snorted coldly. Of course not. If I fight you alone, it will not sound good to you if it gets out. There are 3 of us. Fighting you alone. Zhang Yi, do you dare to accept it? As soon as these words came out, Bailey Chongqing and others immediately showed an interested expression on their faces. They knew that Zhang Yi was very strong, but they didn't know how strong Zhang Yi was. The 3 members of the God team against Zhang Yi alone, this competition was very interesting. And Zhang Yi, would he accept it? Bailey Chongqing frowned slightly, weighing in his heart whether he could beat these 3 people if he changed. But the answer he got in the end was not very optimistic. The members of the investigation team are all elites. One-on-one is okay, but if the 3 of them cooperate with each other, their strength will be enhanced. As a deputy captain, Bailey Chongqing, unless he has the ability to restrain himself, he will never be sure to complete a 1-on-3. Zhang Yi raised his eyelids and said lightly, "If you want to die, I can help you. This battle is a battle to establish prestige, and it must be fought. If not, it will be difficult to lead the team in the future." Yi He and the other 2 showed ecstatic expressions on their faces. They didn't expect Zhang Yi to actually dare to accept their challenge. Yi He smiled sinisterly. To fight the 3 of us at the same time, unless a captain-level alien comes in person. But Zhang Yi doesn't really think that he has the strength of a captain just because he sits in the position of captain, right? This is just like Bailey Chongqing, who was the captain of the Black Robe team, but did not get the attention he deserved. Positions and strengths cannot be completely linked. Chapter 7 24-3 against 1. Zhang Yi turned around and retreated to one side of the training ground. He said calmly, "Everyone else, leave here first." The members of the Black Robe team immediately left the training ground, and Liang Yue also left with Yang Xinxin. In a huge training ground, only Zhang Yi, Yi He, and 3 others were left. "My time is precious. I'm too lazy to go to the martial arts field. I'll fight you here. Hurry up and finish the fight, so I can call it a day." Zhang Yi turned and looked at them, with a look of disapproval on his face. In fact, the two-world knot had already spread out around him, forming a defense with no blind spots. Yi He and the other 2 glanced at each other. Yi He lowered his voice and said, "3 of us will beat him, and we will definitely win. As long as he loses, he will have no face to continue to be the captain. At that time, maybe we will have a chance to use the Tengu team to fight a comeback." Xue Miao frowned, "But we don't know anything about this guy. And he may have obtained our information through the top. We are at a disadvantage in this regard." Yi He said, "That's why I want 3 of us to beat him. As long as the 3 of us have good abilities, we will have a great chance of winning against anyone below the captain level." The 3 people cheered each other up and made up their minds to defeat Zhang Yi here and fight hard. Even if they were expelled from the team, their reputation would be good, which would make it easier for them to join other organizations. Zhang Yi looked at the 3 people who were whispering about tactics, and a contemptuous smile rose at the corner of his mouth. "Can we start?" After the 3 people finished discussing, their eyes were locked on him. "Do it," Yi He shouted in a low voice. Liang Yue took action immediately. He put his 5 fingers together and stabbed into the waists of Yi He and Xue Miao. Poison Doctor, Liang Yue, a special ability user. His body fluids can be turned into deadly poisons or into potions to strengthen the body. At the beginning of the battle, he first injected adrenaline into his 2 companions to increase their physical excitement, greatly improve their mobility, and even improve their senses by several levels. And, of course, he himself was also strengthened to the maximum extent. After being strengthened, Xue Miao took out a dagger with a blue glow from the tactical backpack behind him.
A
turbulent whirlwind emerged around his body, wrapping the 3 of them in it. Zhang Yi did not move at all, and even slowly took out his 2 silver pistols, White Owl, from the alien space. After thinking about it, he added holy silver bullets to them. Just as he was loading the bullets, a gust of wind rushed towards him, and the sky above the entire training ground was filled with madness. The surging airflow even had a huge impact on the field of vision. Riding the wind, Xue Miao arrived in front of Zhang Yi in an instant. Xue Miao, a user of the ability to release, codenamed Windwalker, can manipulate the power of storms and is good at assassination. In an instant, with the help of the strong wind, he killed Zhang Yi from behind. The dagger in his hand, which was glowing with blue light, stabbed Zhang Yi's back fiercely. Zhang Yi seemed not to notice it, and did not even turn his head or make any reaction. But the next moment, the dagger stabbed into the void, and the tip of the dagger suddenly disappeared in the air. "Ha!" Xue Miao's pupils shrank suddenly, and he sensed the breath of danger. But his movements were too fast, and his entire right arm had already sunk into Zhang Yi's different space. Not good. Xue Miao was shocked and hurriedly wanted to withdraw. Although he didn't know what Zhang Yi's ability was, his intuition told him that after entering that strange space, his end would be very miserable. But at this moment, a black hole of a gun was pointed at his head. Zhang Yi didn't even turn his head. After Bai Xiao aimed the huge muzzle of his gun at his head, he pulled the trigger, without hesitation. Damn it! Xue Miao gritted his teeth, and the whistling wind around him became more violent. His figure disappeared in an instant, and when he appeared again, he was already dozens of meters away. Bang! The sound of the gun echoed in the training ground, and the bullet hit the opposite wall, splashing sparks. Xue Miao's eyes showed a cautious look, a spatial ability. I can't even attack at close range. How can I fight? He is an assassin, and his speed and strange body movements are his most advantageous weapons to kill with one blow. However, Zhang Yi is most restrained by this kind of thing. There must be a flaw in his defense, and we must find his flaw first. Xuemiao thought so. Zhang Yi's mouth corners raised, and he looked at Xuemiao, who fled in a hurry with a smile. The shot just now was just a warning. Just now, he was really close, and he almost couldn't help killing Xuemiao. Instinctively, Zhang Yi is particularly sensitive to attacks behind him. But before he pulled the trigger, he remembered that it would be troublesome for him if these guys died. So, he did not use his ability of 20 times acceleration. Otherwise, within 7 steps, his gun would be fast and accurate. Xuemiao could not escape, no matter how fast he was. Just teach you a lesson. Zhang Yi softened his heart for once.
Once.
Xuemiao immediately conveyed his thoughts to Yi He and Luinghao. His ability is very strange. It should be a spatial ability. My close attack was absorbed. The different dimensional space has no ability to actively attack, let alone directly collect living things. But once you actively enter it, life and death will be firmly grasped by Zhang Yi. If Xuemiao had not reacted in time, he would have become Zhang Yi's bag. After hearing what Xuemiao said, Luinghao said in a deep voice, "Let me test him." He took out a dagger and quickly cut his palm. Only a blood mark appeared, but no blood flowed out. Instead, a stream of blood mist flew out of the wound like a swarm of insects and turned into a red mist all over the sky and then swept towards Zhang Yi along the hurricane. Luinghao's own blood can be turned into a deadly poison that penetrates the intestines. It does not need to kill the throat with blood. As long as it is contaminated with human skin, it can quickly penetrate and kill the other party.
The
red mist surrounded Zhang Yi in an instant. Luinghao tried to use this method to find out Zhang Yi's weakness. However, Zhang Yi remained calm, slowly raised his hands, aimed 2 white owls at their bodies, and started shooting. As long as they couldn't be killed, no matter how serious the injuries were, the medical center in Blizzard City would be able to save them. If they were disabled, they were disabled. The red mist completely sank into Zhang Yi's alien space, causing no harm to Zhang Yi. But those holy silver bullets penetrated the storm like a stream of light and shot sharply at the 3 people. Holy silver bullets, accurate shooting, plus a 20-fold increase in speed, all kinds of abilities mixed together, it has become a super long-range killing move. Even high-level Delta aliens dare not resist this killing move. Chapter 7:25 Absolute Defense. The holy silver bullets shot at the 3 people, and the 3 people dodged quickly. The rapid-fire bullets were like a silver rainstorm, making it hard to defend against. Fortunately, the 3 people were strengthened by Luinghao's adrenaline, which made their reaction speed agile enough. Therefore, they barely escaped the first round of shooting, but they were also embarrassed. Can you find his blind spot? Impossible. As long as he is a human, he must have weaknesses. Yi He said unwillingly. Under his feet, the black shadow flickered and changed, like an evil spirit waiting for an opportunity to move. However, he has not found Zhang Yi's weakness yet, so he can't act easily. That would only expose his trump card. But Bailey Chongqing saw this scene and shook his head helplessly. There is one thing they don't know. If they knew it, they wouldn't foolishly challenge Zhang Yi. Wu Di looked at him. What is it? Bailey Chongqing looked at Zhang Yi, who was calm and indifferent to any attack. He said slowly, in the official information, Zhang Yi's ability code name is Absolute Defense. The abilities of these 3 people are just like delivering food to him. There is only one way to break through Zhang Yi's ability, that is to use absolutely powerful force to break through the threshold of energy absorption in the alien space. At one time, resulting in the temporary failure of the dimensional gate. But with Zhang Yi's current strength, to do this, only those with extremely powerful release or special ability and aliens of the same level or even above him can do it. This is the strength of the captain-level alien who focuses on defense. Bailey Chongqing sighed. Zhang Yi may not be able to kill his opponent, but he is extremely difficult to kill. Zhang Yi stared at the three people in front of him calmly, and the bullets in his hand shot mercilessly. Bai Zhao's pair of pistols are mainly used for close combat, which is more convenient. But in terms of power, it is less than 1/10 of the Thunderbolt. However, Zhang Yi dared not use the Thunderbolt easily, especially in this kind of competition with teammates. He was afraid that he would accidentally blow these people to pieces. But even so, Yi and the other two were in a very awkward situation when they fled. Xue Miao's magic of movement was completely useless against Zhang Yi. Even if he could get close, he couldn't find a weakness to attack. Liang Yue's ability was even more useless. He could only release poison through physical means, and this method was naturally defeated by Zhang Yi. Only he hadn't activated his ability yet, and he was waiting for an opportunity. But Zhang Yi had all their information in his mind. Yi, a release-type alien, had the ability codename Phantom Killer. He could use shadows to kill people within a range of 300 meters.
At the
same time, he could use shadows to exchange positions with people. In essence, he was also an assassin.
What
assassins like to do most is to wait for the opportunity. But if he was facing an alien who focused on defense, then his ability would become extremely useless. Of course, they could also choose to escape. If they were on the battlefield, Zhang Yi didn't like to chase the enemy. But now they were all in a training ground as big as 4 basketball courts.
If
Yi and the other two wanted to challenge Zhang Yi, they couldn't escape. Then they would only be 3 living targets. From the beginning, Zhang Yi had calculated everything in his mind. If he was not 100% sure of winning this battle, he would not accept such a request as 1-on-3.
Bang.
Bang. Bang.
Bang.
The light of the holy silver bullets kept crossing the space, and the 3 people had exhausted all their strength just to avoid the trajectory of the bullets. Adrenaline is like a stimulant. It is more like an enhanced stimulant, which can temporarily improve a person's comprehensive ability. However, the price is that after the effect of the drug is over, the body will be in a very weak state. Now, Zhang Yi's bullets force them to overdraw the effect of the drug. Damn, there is no way to get close. And even if you can get close, you don't know how to break through his defense. What the hell is that kind of power? Is there really no blind spot? The 3 people had never had any contact with Zhang Yi before. Otherwise, if they had seen the match between Zhang Yi and Wu Di, they would have some understanding of Zhang Yi's ability. In the eyes of Bailey Chongqing, Liang Yue, and others, this battle was very funny. Yi and the other two were like 3 monkeys, jumping up and down to avoid Zhang Yi's bullets. They were at a loss and had no good way to defend against Zhang Yi. However, Zhang Yi had too many bullets in his hand, and he could not use them all. He had Liu Karen and the huge resources of Tianhai City, which was equivalent to having an inexhaustible arsenal. Zhang Yi is releasing the water of the Pacific Ocean. Liang Yue said helplessly, covering his forehead. His real killer move, whether it was the divine power or the spear of the void, could instantly kill the 3 people in front of him. But now Zhang Yi only used guns to deal with them, just like an adult teasing 3 naughty children. She even felt sorry for these 3 ignorant guys. After 2 rounds of planning, Yi and the other 2 felt extremely aggrieved. But the body's reaction speed also slowed down as the effect of adrenaline wore off. Xue Miao was the first to be shot. His leg was pierced by the holy silver bullet, and a bullet hole appeared from front to back.
Ah!
He cried out in pain and fell directly to the ground. Zhang Yi pointed his gun at his head and then shot the floor next to his ear. Smoke was lingering, and Xue Miao was so scared that he sweated. No, I give up. He just wanted to get some benefits from Zhang Yi, and he didn't intend to really fight Zhang Yi to the death. So when he saw that the situation was not good, he jumped out and turned against him at the first time. Seeing Xue Miao surrender, Yi and Liang Yue were also anxious. As the weakest member of the God team, Liang Yue knew that the situation was unstoppable, so he decisively clicked the button to surrender. Captain, I admit defeat. I am really not your opponent. He raised his hands and obediently retreated to the sidelines. As a human being, the most important thing is to be happy. Why play with your life? Yi gritted his teeth and cursed inwardly, useless thing. Under his feet, the shadow twisted and deformed at will, and then used the exchange of positions between the human body and the shadow to accurately dodge Zhang Yi's round after round of bullets. Zhang Yi couldn't help but admire him a little. This guy is worthy of being a member of the middle level of the God team. He is really good. Zhang Yi, although you have taken advantage of the rules here, but on the battlefield, can you hide there all the time? If I want to escape, how will you deal with it? Seeing that he couldn't find Zhang Yi's weakness, Yi said sarcastically. He was still unconvinced in his heart. He thought that Zhang Yi was taking advantage of the terrain. But they don't understand that a true master knows how to make good use of every environment around him. Chapter 726. It's really annoying. Zhang Yi heard this and silently put down the 2 guns in his hands. I was going to solve this problem in an ordinary way, but all I got in return was your arrogance. Okay, I won't pretend anymore. I'm going to show my hand. Zhang Yi covered his forehead with one hand and sighed. But in his right eye, a white light was already gathering. When he put down his right hand and looked at Yi, a breath of death instantly enveloped his body. A layer of white sweat appeared on Yi's back. He quickly used his shadow to move his body 300 meters away. But Zhang Yi turned around quickly, his eyes still fixed on his position. There is also a cooling time for teleportation. Each time it is activated, it takes another 10 seconds to use it again. And this time, he was locked by Zhang Yi, and he couldn't escape. God's power. Zhang Yi's right eye suddenly opened, and in front of his vision, a huge cylindrical space instantly became distorted. Silently, a huge hole was opened in the wall of the training ground. Designed specifically for training aliens, the heavy reinforced concrete is like mud, and a 3-meter circle passage is penetrated. Yi stood there blankly, and the god of death passed by him. He felt a chill in his head, a bone-chilling cold. Zhang Yi looked at him coldly. Do you want to continue? Yi stood there blankly, and he forgot the words for a moment. But an idea emerged in his mind. He actually tried to challenge the person in front of him. What a stupid decision. Only Deng Shintong had ever given him this kind of terrifying oppression and despair. That was an opponent he could never defeat. It's just that Zhang Yi and Deng Shintong are 2 completely opposite aliens. Deng Shintong is an absolute attack, and Zhang Yi, on the other hand, maintains absolute defense first, and then attacks. But his attack rarely has meaningless temptations, and his first move is a killing move. Playing with them with guns before was just teasing them. Puff. Ha 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 ha. The air in the field seemed to freeze, but the silence was broken by the loud laughter outside the field. Wu Di covered his stomach, pointed at Yi with one hand, put one hand on Bailey Chongqing's arm, and laughed. Others also looked at him and couldn't help laughing. Yi was a little puzzled, but soon he found that something was wrong. The coolness above his head did not seem to be a psychological effect. He subconsciously reached out to touch his head, but it felt very slippery. His hair was shaved off by Zhang Yi. Ah! Yi collapsed and screamed. He was a handsome man after all, and he had a lot of female fans in Blizzard City. Now Zhang Yi had shaved off his hair, which he cared about the most. How could he go out and meet people in the future? Zhang Yi said coldly, "This farce ends here." Hey, that guy. He looked at Liang Yue. Liang Yue said honestly, "Captain Zhang, what do you want to do?" "Good boy, you changed your mind quickly." Zhang Yi glanced at him. "Take these 2 guys down to treat them." Liang Yue got Zhang Yi's order, and then he dared to go over to check Xue Miao's injuries. Yi sat on the ground in despair, with a look of despair on his face. But Zhang Yi didn't have the slightest idea of pitying them. "From now on, you can quit the Tengu squad anytime you want. My decision will not change." Yi looked up at Zhang Yi, and he opened his mouth to say something, but when he thought of what he had done, he couldn't say it. It turned out that the clown was actually them. Bailey Chongqing was still giving face, and came over and helped Yi up. Then he sent the 3 of them away from the training ground. "I know a doctor who is very good at treating hair loss. He is a kind of cola, which can cure all diseases after drinking it, and your hair will grow quickly. Bailey Chongqing sent the 3 members of the former Tianhai squad away and returned to the training ground. At this time, the members of the Black Robe team looked at Zhang Yi with more awe. Zhang Yi today is much stronger than they knew at the beginning, especially the defense that cannot be cracked. No matter how hard the people present thought, they could not find a way to deal with it. Zhang Yi looked at them and said very bluntly, "Everyone knows that the Tengu team was established. This is just a temporary team. After the Eclipse moon problem is solved, the team will be disbanded. That's why those guys are so unscrupulous. But here I want to tell you that as long as this team exists, I will be the captain for one day. If anyone makes me unhappy, I will make him even more unhappy." The atmosphere at the scene became much more serious.
Zhang
Yi has proved to them through Yi He and the other 2 that he is not someone to be trifled with. The Celestial God Squad has already failed in the mission to conquer Eclipse Moon, and 8 people, including their captain, died. I don't think you are better than them. So now you must face the problems we will encounter with the most serious attitude. Otherwise, you will die. Bailey Chongqing nodded. He stood straight in a standard military posture. Yes, Captain. We have already realized it in our hearts. They have had this realization since the first day they joined the investigation team. Moreover, the members of the investigation team have been replaced all the time, and more than 90% of those who were eliminated died in the mission. Why can the investigation team enjoy high-level resource supply? They paid for it with their lives. Zhang Yi nodded. It's best to have this realization. But there is no need to sacrifice in vain. My ability is more defensive, and so is my personality. So when fighting, I will try my best to protect everyone's lives. The time of action is unknown, and the action plan also needs to be determined according to the occasion when Eclipse Moon appears. In this regard, Deputy Captain Bailey is an expert. Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing. He was the deputy captain, and this was undisputed. Everyone was convinced by his strength and popularity. Zhang Yi said to Bailey Chongqing, "In the next period of time, I hope you can strengthen the training of the team members. Don't slack off at all." Bailey Chongqing put his hands behind his back and responded loudly, "Yes, Captain." In fact, in the past few months, their team's training has never been relaxed. Even if the senior people look down on their understaffed team, they will not give up on themselves. Just waiting for this day, the opportunity to go to the battlefield. Chapter 727 Ability Index. Zhang Yi walked up to Bailey Chongqing and whispered to him, "As for the 3 of us, you need to take some private lessons." Zhang Yi frowned at Bailey Chongqing. It was a bit strange to say this in public. As the captain, his basic combat quality was definitely not as good as the members of the Black Robe team. And Yang Xinxin and Liang Yue were also lacking in this aspect. Letting Bailey Chongqing give them special training would definitely allow them to gain something. Bailey Chongqing was stunned for a moment, then smiled and replied, "Yes, as you wish." He rubbed his hands. "It's just that you 3 can't train with other team members. There is a big difference in training methods and intensity. Will this affect the subsequent battles? If the running in is not good, the subsequent group operations will definitely not be so tacit." In this regard, Zhang Yi was relatively calm. "It's not a big problem. You just help us train well." He didn't expect to have the combat quality of a professional soldier in a short period of time. It's better to improve a little. By the way, there is one more thing that I need your help with. Zhang Yi whispered in Bailey Chongqing's ear. Bailey Chongqing was a little surprised. He looked at Liang Yue deeply and nodded slowly. Then he said to the others, "You guys go for your daily training first. The captain and I have something to do, and we have to leave for a while." Wu Di and the others didn't know what they were doing. But now Zhang Yi and Bailey Chongqing are the captain and vice captain, so they naturally have to obey their orders. Several people could only endure their curiosity and watch Zhang Yi and Bailey Chongqing leave with Yang Xinxin and Liang Yue. Zhang Yi and the others came to the martial arts field. Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing and said with a smile, "Thank you for your hard work today." Bailey Chongqing looked at Liang Yue and shrugged with a smile. "It doesn't matter. We will all be teammates in the future, and we should help each other." Zhang Yi nodded. "Then let's do an experiment." He took Yang Xinxin out of the martial arts field. This place was soon closed. As the captain of the investigation team, Zhang Yi now has the authority to apply for the opening of the martial arts field. The martial arts field quickly became a huge area of 5 kilometers in radius. And Bailey Chongqing and Liang Yue are the protagonists of this martial arts performance. That's right, Zhang Yi wanted Liang Yue to fight Bailey Chongqing to judge her current strength. Of course, because it was an experiment, Zhang Yi would not let them really fight to the death. Even the weapons used were blunt instruments, without sharp edges. Liang Yue held a blunt knife with her eyes closed. The moment she opened her eyes, the amazing momentum spread out from her to the entire field. Bailey Chongqing used an alloy long stick as a weapon. He swept it with one hand, and the momentum was also amazing. The battle between the two began. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin watched it very carefully. The battle below was a battle between the top enhanced aliens. The enhanced system is the most common existence among the aliens. Their enhancement is mainly based on flesh and blood, which can improve comprehensive attributes. Most of them have no ability other than close combat. But if you underestimate them because of this, it would be absolutely wrong. Because, theoretically speaking, enhanced aliens are one of the few who can kill people across multiple levels. Even if it is only a LV2 beta level enhanced mutant, once they get a chance to get close, they may use their powerful close combat ability to kill a LV4 delta level strongman. Coupled with their terrifying vitality and self-healing ability, enhanced mutants have become an existence that no one dares to underestimate. After the transformation, Liang Yue and Bailey Chongqing are the best in this field. Watching them fight is as terrifying as watching two monsters from ancient times fighting each other. Just as Zhang Yi was concentrating on observing, his device suddenly received information provided by the martial arts field. Zhang Yi chose to receive it out of curiosity, and a blue screen appeared in front of him, showing the data analysis of the two combatants. Zhang Yi's eyes flashed with a look of astonishment. He had been to the martial arts field once before, but that time he was a participant. But he thought of the martial arts field that could analyze the abilities of the mutants. In fact, he really guessed it. Yang Xinxin also curiously leaned over and looked at the data analysis of Liang Yue and Bailey Chongqing. There are two people's portraits and detailed analysis of their abilities. Liang Yue, Enhancement Ability User. Weapon, Long Sword. Speed, A1. Strength, A1. Skill, S1. Ability Index, 6,800 points. Bailey Chongqing, Enhancement Ability User. Weapon, Long Staff. Speed, A1. Strength, A2. Skill, A2. Ability Index, 7,200 points. The above are the basic data, and there are many complex analytical data that are not enough to be listed one by one. Zhang Yi was also a little surprised. No wonder the regional units can evaluate the level of aliens. It turns out that they have such detailed data analysis. What is the ability index? Zhang Yi asked the intelligence system of the martial arts field. Soon the martial arts field gave Zhang Yi an answer. It is similar to the combat power index. But due to the variety of abilities, in addition to combat-type aliens, there are also many other abilities such as auxiliary and life-type abilities. Therefore, a comprehensive score is given based on the practicality of the ability. In other words, the ability index is not completely equivalent to the combat power index. For example, Zhou Ke, her ability is healing. Even if the ability index reaches 10,000, her combat ability is not as good as that of an alien with an ability index of 1,000. But for aliens who are also combat type, this ability index is close to combat power. However, it cannot be completely equivalent to combat power because the restraint relationship between abilities needs to be considered. Zhang Yi felt a little itchy, and he couldn't help asking, "What is my ability index?" The martial arts arena quickly gave Zhang Yi the data. 5,200. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. Is my ability index so low? But he soon understood. The data collected by the martial arts arena was still the previous battle between him and Wu Di. But in fact, he did not reveal his true strength in front of Blizzard City. So this ability index is not of much reference value to him. The two monsters below continued to fight, and the fighting wind rushed into the sky, making waves of terrifying shouts. Zhang Yi was curious and started a conversation with the intelligence system of the martial arts arena. Asked them about the division of the ability index. The intelligence system also gave Zhang Yi the following reply. LV1 Alpha, Alpha, 1 to 9. LV2 Beta, Beta, 10 to 99. LV3 Gamma, Gamma, 100 to 999. LV4 Delta, Delta, 1000 to 9999. LV5 Epsilon, Epsilon, 10,000 unknown. These are the levels of superpowers currently confirmed by humans and the division of superpower indexes for them. In other words, Liang Yue and Bailey Chongqing, now showing the strength of LV4 high-level combat power. Chapter 728 New Deputy Captain Level. Bailey Chongqing and Liang Yue fought for a long time, but there was no clear winner. Although both of them held back and did not fight to the death, this result also showed that Liang Yue's potential had been greatly developed. Now she has the strength of a vice-captain. The two of them stopped fighting in tacit understanding and returned to the stands. Bailey Chongqing took the initiative to praise Zhang Yi. I didn't expect that there was such a master hidden by your side. Her strength amazes me. If I hadn't been trained by the district, I might not have been her opponent in a one-on-one fight in the past. Bailey Chongqing's words were not modesty. Liang Yue was not practicing martial arts performances, but real killing skills. All those who could serve as bodyguards in that place were ruthless. If it was a life-and-death battle, he was not sure that he could beat Liang Yue. He just had the advantage of being trained by the Jiangnan district for a longer time. Before Liang Yue got the help of Dongjia technology, she was mostly a wild growth. Zhang Yi nodded and looked at Liang Yue with an unstoppable smile in his eyes. He finally had a capable fighter by his side. By the way, the ability index system, do you know anything about it? Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing. Bailey Chongqing smiled and said, of course. This is the ability level evaluation of the mutants by the region using the artificial intelligence system. The division of alpha, beta, and other levels of superpowers actually has clear boundaries. For example, for delta and gamma, the boundary is whether they can master the power of co-devouring. And for delta and epsilon, the boundary is the power of the ability, whether it has reached a leap-like jump. For epsilon, the most basic judgment is whether one has the power to destroy a city alone. Of course, for some mutants, their superpower index will be described by the indicators of other mutants. Bailey Chongqing raised a finger. However, this simple level division is too general. It cannot reflect the true ability of the mutants. There are still huge level differences between each major level division. So many years ago, experts in the field of mutant research proposed the concept of superpower index. That is the current superpower index standard. Zhang Yi nodded. This way, it can indeed more intuitively reflect the ability level of the mutants. Bailey Chongqing asked, Captain, do you know your own superpower index? I don't know, Zhang Yi said directly. Bailey Chongqing smiled and said, the latest update of your ability index was after you killed 4 members of Eclipse Moon. Based on your combat record and ability, the intelligence system set your ability index at 8,200 points. 8,200 points, 1,000 points higher than Bailey Chongqing. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, can I ask what the ability index of Bian Zhenwu and Deng Shintong is? Bailey Chongqing answered truthfully, Captain Bian is 9,100 points, and Deng Shintong is 9,300 points. Zhang Yi couldn't help laughing even harder. Bailey Chongqing thought Zhang Yi was unhappy that he was underestimated. He quickly explained, this is just a numerical judgment, and it cannot be absolutely linked to combat power. After all, there are too many factors that determine victory or defeat on the battlefield. Zhang Yi shook his head. Bailey Chongqing didn't understand what he meant. He was not angry but happy. That's right, happy. Even though he became the captain of the investigation team, in the eyes of most people in Blizzard City, his strength was still between the vice-captain and the captain. In other words, none of them really understood Zhang Yi's strength. Isn't this a wonderful thing? He still has a hidden card. Later, after Bailey Chongqing left, Zhang Yi specifically asked Liang Yue, are you sure you can win against him? because the intelligence system of the martial arts field judged that Liang Yue's ability index was lower than Bailey Chongqing. Liang Yue did not answer this question directly. She just glanced at the unsharpened long sword used for training in her hand and said lightly, "The sword is not in my hand." In the following time, Zhang Yi made a training plan for the Tengu team. The former Black Robe team members trained as usual because their daily training volume did not drop. The key point is that Bailey Chongqing, the former lieutenant colonel of Yanyanwei and the Special Forces instructor, will train Zhang Yi, Liang Yue, and Yang Xinxin.
What
Zhang Yi and others have to learn is the real cooperation on the battlefield, including basic squad mode tactics. Professional soldiers are definitely better than these amateurs in this regard. On the second day, Yi He and his 3 men, who had recovered from the treatment, found Zhang Yi. They had seen Zhang Yi's strength and were completely convinced. Yi He led the way, and the 3 bowed to Zhang Yi at a 90-degree angle. "Captain, please forgive us for our rudeness to you. We hope to join the operation to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon and avenge Captain Deng and the teammates of the God Squad." Zhang Yi looked at the 3 people in front of him without saying a word. The 3 people bowed 90 degrees and kept it for a full 10 minutes. Even for well-trained soldiers, the psychological pressure was a bit heavy. Just when they were about to give up, Zhang Yi's voice came from above their heads. "Are you convinced by my punishment for you? A major demerit and a public review. This kind of punishment is a bit heavy if it is just because of being late once." But the 3 people are not stupid. They understand that Zhang Yi is using them to establish his authority. And now to come back, they have to look at Zhang Yi's face. Yi He quickly replied, "We are convinced." He quickly took out a letter of apology from his body. It was a very long letter of apology, more than a dozen pages, all handwritten. "This is my apology." Zhang Yi did not read his apology. "Members of the Tengu squad are going to risk their lives and fight for the honor of the country, so there is a high probability that you will die. If it means victory, I will sacrifice your lives without hesitation. Even so, are you still coming? Some things must be made clear in advance, in order to avoid giving people something to talk about when they are sent to die." The 3 people said in unison, "As long as we can destroy Eclipse, we are willing to sacrifice our lives." For these warriors who have been on the battlefield for a long time, death is not the most terrible thing. The most terrible thing is that they have no chance to wash away the shame on themselves and live with regret for the rest of their lives. The defeat of the Celestial God team made the number they were once proud of become a huge joke. The glory attached to them in the past suddenly dimmed, and they even often heard others talking about the fact that the Celestial God team lost to Eclipse Moon. This kind of thing is even more shameful that the number 1 seed in the competition area and the team with the highest voice for the World Championship lost to the team that came up from the bubble match in the number 3 competition area. Therefore, they couldn't sleep all night, and they wanted to find the people of Eclipse Moon and fight them immediately. Even if they died on the battlefield, it would make them feel more comfortable than living like a coward. Chapter 729. They are coming. Zhang Yi finally chose to let Yi He and the other 2 recite their self-examinations publicly and then recruit them into the team. After all, these 3 people are also good fighters, and they will definitely be used in the fight against Eclipse Moon. Anyway, even if they have opinions about Zhang Yi in their hearts, they dare not disobey orders on the battlefield. Because in that case, Zhang Yi can kill them with a clear reason. In the following time, training became their main job. Gao Chongkong would often contact Zhang Yi to discuss the content of the joint operation at that time. As for the headquarters, they are always paying attention to the movements of various places in the region. Operation Command Center. It has been half a month since the last encirclement and suppression of Eclipse Moon. In half a month, the headquarters has made comprehensive plans, just waiting for Eclipse Moon to appear again. Zhu Zheng personally called the commander of the East China Sea region. "Old Li, I believe you are also aware of the things that happened in our region before. The Ronin came across the sea, and your East China Sea region is responsible for coastal defense. You are also responsible for this matter. The East China Sea region was originally responsible for coastal defense in the eastern waters. But after the end of the world, The era of battleships in the Arctic Ocean has arrived, and ordinary navies can no longer maintain deep-sea operations. Therefore, the East China Sea region is responsible for patrolling the entire southeast coastline. Li Guangxiao, the commander of the East China Sea region, smacked his lips when he heard Zhu Zheng's words. Old Zhu, what you said is unreasonable. Our defense in the East China Sea is mainly against pirate groups that suddenly appear in the surrounding areas, and we are wary of other regional forces that may invade our territory. Now that the Ice Age has arrived, we don't have enough manpower to plug all the loopholes. It's impossible to stop all the small fish and shrimp. Zhu Zheng nodded. I know. What I'm worried about this time is that because of Eclipse's actions, a large number of overseas forces will plot evil. So, you have to pay more attention to your coastal defense work, especially the southeastern coastal area of our Jiangnan region. Li Guangxiao said, You don't need to remind me, I know this matter. Now is a critical moment. If any fleet appears in the nearby waters, we will directly open fire and sink it if our warning is ineffective. We will not give them the opportunity to land. Having said that, the East China Sea region can only focus on large fleets. There is not enough energy and manpower to intercept every ship. Therefore, Eclipse's icebreaker will cross the sea. Li Guangxiao suddenly asked, Old Zhu, I heard that Eclipse has been destroyed by Yu Half, and now there is no trace of it. Are they afraid and have already escaped? You are like this, making a fuss all day long. If something happens, Li Guangxiao's tone was teasing. He and Zhu Zheng are also old acquaintances. Seeing Zhu Zheng's defeat, he was a little gloating, but it was a joke between old friends, and there was no malice. No, I know they will come back. Zhu Zheng said with a straight face. I know those wolf cubs too well. Their ambitions are bigger than their appetites. These wolf cubs will go crazy as soon as they see blood. They will not give up the opportunity and continue to nibble at the Jiangnan region. I'll wait for them here, Li Guangxiao replied. Well, you guys can handle the land issues on your own. As for the coastline, I will block it. As long as their traces are found, I can guarantee that they will never be able to leave by sea again. Just as Zhu Zheng thought, the people of Eclipse Moon never gave up occupying the Central Plains. They retreated after the last battle. The purpose of retreating was not only to heal the wounds. It was also to use this as capital to win over more helpers and launch a more grand battle. Above the Arctic Ocean, the fog was thick in the morning and the vision was invisible. The temperature in the air made people feel that their blood was cold. The Tianhai pirates, the 4th Division, rode into the southeastern waters in the vast fog, heading towards the most prosperous Jiangnan region. The pirates on the ship were clearly divided into different levels. Only cadre-level pirates were qualified to wear combat uniforms, and they were still old models from more than a decade ago. As for ordinary pirates, they could only fight in thick cotton clothes. Their messy hair and eyelashes were covered with thick ice crystals, but everyone held a leather wine bag and used strong liquor to drive away the cold. On the bow, Fengguangyuan was still dressed in that thin outfit. His special ability allowed him to be fearless of the severe cold. At this time, he was holding a huge black lump in his hand. It was an old-fashioned satellite phone, although it looked outdated and did not have many modern functions. But its confidentiality was very good, and it could even block regional-level satellite monitoring. Moshi. After the call was connected, a deep man's voice came from the other side. The Jiangnan district is already waiting for you to come. Fengguangyuan narrowed his eyes. Oh? So, what kind of troops are they going to use to deal with us? A lot more than last time. Haha, that's really great. It's interesting. Fengguangyuan looked back and saw dozens of ships breaking through the waves on the vast Arctic Ocean, heading towards the coastal cities of the Jiangnan region. I have made a lot of preparations. The voice on the other end of the phone came again. If you want to win this time, you must get rid of someone.
Who?
Someone who can break your power of prophecy. Fengguangyuan's eyes became terrifying. He thought of that person. If it weren't for that person, his team wouldn't have such a high casualty ratio. It can even be said that if it weren't for that person's existence, they would be afraid to act rashly. After destroying the God Squad, they could have marched straight in and occupied several cities in the Central Plains. In Fengguangyuan Ren's view, the existence of that guy is even more troublesome than the captain-level figures of the Jiangnan region's investigation team. Where is that guy? Fengguangyuan asked with narrowed eyes. The voice on the other end of the phone sneered. Don't worry, I will help you get rid of him. Next, you need to... Fengguangyuan Ren listened quietly to the man's words. The smile on his lips became more and more intense. It sounds great. Thank you so much for providing us with information again and again. It's just that I have always had a question. He narrowed his eyes and asked meaningfully, who are you, and why do you keep helping us? Could it be that you are also an enemy of the Jiangnan district? There was silence on the other end of the phone for a moment. The man's voice sounded again. Does it matter? You won't trust me completely, and you will consider the truth of the information yourself. But one thing is certain. You and I have a common interest in dealing with the Jiangnan district. Chapter 730 Action. The voice from Huan stopped abruptly. After he finished speaking the intelligence, he left just like before. Huan suddenly burst into laughter. This attracted the attention of the captain of the 4th Division, Canute. You seem very happy? Huan Jin turned around and said to him with a smile, Of course, I am happy. Hey, my friend. I have great news to tell you. This time, you can make a fortune. And I need you to change the direction of advance. Huan Jin narrowed his eyes. The target of your pirate group has been changed to a mommy city this time. I need you to help me kill a difficult person first. Canute looked at him with a gloomy face. A difficult person, let me deal with it. Huan put a finger to his lips. Don't be nervous. It's a little tricky for us, but it may not be for you. Besides, you should know how rich Tianhai City is. Canute laughed. Ronan, you'd better tell the truth. If I know that you dare to plot against me, you will never go by sea again in this life. How dare I? Fengguangyuan Ren spread his hands, but a trace of disdainful ridicule flashed in the depths of his eyes. Now, as long as we follow Mayumi's guidance, we can avoid the navy and land safely on the other side. When that time comes, please plunder whatever you want. For half a month, in order to prepare for the next mission to encircle and suppress Eclipse Moon, the entire Blizzard City has put the core of all its work on this. The Tengu Squad and the Samsara Squad have all obtained the top resources. Inside and outside the city, the only topic is when to fight Eclipse Moon again and avenge the previous shame. At this time, in Blizzard City, annihilating Eclipse Moon has become the most important thing. In order to achieve this goal, all other matters will be temporarily shelved. On the night of that day, the Defense Department of the Combat Command Center suddenly sounded an alarm. Enemies appeared near Jiangnan District. After receiving the news, Zhu Zheng got up from the bed immediately and rushed to the Combat Command Center. Not only him, but all the combatants also took their positions immediately. The enemy would attack at night, and they were not unprepared. Zhu Zheng got in the car and put on headphones to hold a meeting with the senior executives of the combat center. Where did the enemy appear? Can you be sure it was Eclipse Moons? The Minister of Defense replied, The area with abnormal reactions is near the coast, and there are not just one area, but 3. Zhu Zheng frowned and sneered. It seems that they have moved reinforcements here. It doesn't matter. Just this time we can wipe them out in one fell swoop. The Minister of Defense continued. Shielding holes have appeared in the waters outside Tianhai City, Linhai City, and Huazhou City. These ships bypassed the Navy's defense line. We basically judged that they were Eclipse Moon's people. They used the prophecy ability to avoid the Navy's patrol. Zhu Zheng said with a cold face, Send out drones for reconnaissance. At least we have to determine who the other party is. Drones have limited mobility in extremely cold temperatures and cannot engage in too complicated combat missions. However, using their own high-definition cameras, they can still capture images of the invading troops. The Minister of Defense replied, Yes. He immediately went offline and arranged for people to find out who the invading enemies on these 3 routes were. Zhu Zheng instructed his secretary Lan Xinqing again, Notify all members of the Tengu Squad and the Samsara Squad to gather at the combat center immediately. This time, we must keep the enemy out of the country and not allow them to make trouble on our land. Lan Xinqing nodded. Understood. Zhu Zheng personally called Li Guangxiao of the East China Sea region. He asked them to send the navy to quickly arrive at the outer waters of Linhai City, Tianhai City, and Huazhou City to block the enemy's retreat. In this battle, all these people must be killed, and no one can be left behind. Otherwise, the disasters in the Jiangnan region will be endless in the future. The jackals lurking in the dark will be eager to pounce on them. Zhang Yi was sleeping, but the sound of the communication equipment immediately woke him up. He had always slept very lightly, and a little movement could wake him up. After waking up, Zhang Yi glanced at the time. It was midnight, and the name of Lan Xinqing was displayed on the satellite phone. He picked up the phone and answered it. Hello, Secretary Lan. Captain Zhang, the enemy is coming. Please lead your team members to the Combat Command Center immediately. The war will start tonight. Zhang Yi's eyes became sharp. I'll be there soon. Without any extra words, he immediately got up from the bed, put on his clothes, and contacted Bailey Chongqing to ask him to summon all the team members to assemble. Then he went to the next room to wake up Liang Yue and Yang Xinxin. The Eclipse people are coming. Get ready immediately and assemble at the combat center, Zhang Yi said while sorting out his equipment. The captain-level combat uniform is specially made. With the cooperation relationship with Deng Yuanbo, he asked for a combat uniform of the same style as Deng Shintong. It is the most high-tech product in the region. There are many hidden pockets on this suit. It can hold daggers, medicines, bullets, bombs, and other items. It is resistant to high temperatures and extreme cold, and even the built-in black combat suit is the latest model. Its defense and practicality are both top-notch. There are only 2 sets of such combat uniforms in the entire Deng family. What Zhang Yi wore was actually Deng Shintong's spare model. After putting on the equipment, Zhang Yi checked the large number of weapons in the different space again. All weapons are in a state of readiness and can be taken out at any time. The guns are on safety and other combat items are also in the best condition. Zhang Yi checked his weapons and equipment in the shortest time. Yang Xinxin and Liang Yue did not dare to neglect it. After Zhang Yi left the room, the two began to equip themselves and check each other. As for Huahua, due to its deformable characteristics, there is no suitable weapon equipment for it. But its natural fur is the best weapon. Wild beasts are usually stronger than modern humans in battle. 15 minutes later, the 3 people and the cat walked out of the villa. The night was dark, but in Blizzard City, hundreds of searchlights were shining into the endless night sky, lighting up the city. People from the Yanyan Guard were already waiting outside, and the car was ready for Zhang Yi and the others. Several people got in the car and set off towards the combat center, without stopping. Not long after, when the vehicle was driving on the main road, it was discovered that other similar vehicles were also heading towards the combat center. Members of the Samsara Squad, members of the Tengu Squad, as well as the senior officials of the Yanyan Guard and the senior officials of the Combat Command were all gathering at the combat center. Chapter 731-3 Enemy Troops. Zhang Yi and his team arrived at the combat center. Gao Chengkong's car arrived before him. After seeing Zhang Yi, he hurried over to greet him. Chaos, you're here. Let's go up quickly. Time is urgent. Gao Chengkong called Zhang Yi by his code name. When performing special tasks, names will not be used to avoid exposing important personal information. Zhang Yi was a little uncomfortable at first, but he got used to it over time. He nodded and walked towards the elevator with Gao Chengkong. As for the others, they were not qualified to participate in the high-level meeting and were waiting below. Do you know what's going on? Will King. Will King is Gao Chengkong's code name. Gao Chengkong shook his head. I just received the notice like you. Let's go up and talk. The two got on the elevator and went straight to the combat command room. After the two arrived, most of the people in the command room had already arrived. After all, these senior executives received the notice first and then notified them, the frontline combat troops. Zhu Zheng glanced at them and waved to the two. Huan Dun, King of the Wheel, please sit down. Listen to what the Ministry of Defense has to say. Zhang Yi and Gao Chengkong found an empty seat and sat down. The Minister of Defense did not delay. Time was very precious at this time, and not a single bit could be wasted, so they skipped the process of talking nonsense. A holographic image appeared in the center of the conference room. Not long after, the door of the conference room was opened, and the Minister of Operations Tu Yunlai also arrived at the scene. He took a look inside the room and sat not far from Zhang Yi and the others. The core members of the combat force were all present, so the Minister of Defense did not wait any longer. He pointed at the holographic image, and 3 red dots immediately appeared on it. This time, we found that there are 3 groups of enemies that suddenly appeared along the coast. Based on our current investigation, we have basically determined their identities. He pointed to Huazhou City. In the waters near Huazhou City, there appeared a Ronin organization, Extreme Demon, from the surrounding waters of Japan. This is a group of villains with more than 500 members. They use Ropefly Island as their base and engage in banditry on land and at sea. Then, he pointed to Linhai City. In Linhai City, we found the symbol of Erosion Moon and many of their members. It can be basically concluded that the main force of Erosion Moon is here. Zhang Yi and Gao Chongkong stared at the location of Linhai City, with a strange light flashing in their eyes. Erosion Moon is the enemy they want to destroy the most. But then, the Minister of Defense pointed to the 3rd location, which made Zhang Yi's eyes change. Tianhai City. The ones who appeared in the waters near this are members of the Tianlong pirates who dominate the southern seas. This pirate group has a total of 7 fleets, and their strength is very fierce. They have destroyed many small countries. Although from the scale point of view, it is only one of their fleets. But to deal with it, it also requires the deployment of a large number of troops. After listening to the words of the Minister of Defense, the atmosphere in the conference room became solemn. Originally, it was thought that the reinforcements invited by Eclipse Moon were just a group of rabble. But the appearance of the Tianlong pirates gave them a lot of pressure. The Ronin organization Extreme Demon is not bad. Although there are many people, Ronin are idle people. Although there are many people, their strength may not be that terrible. However, the Tianlong pirates are basically composed of professional soldiers and gang members from various countries in the Southern Sea area. After a long period of fighting, they have already possessed a good combat effectiveness. Zhang Yi's eyes fell on Zhu Zheng. In the current situation, either choose to divide the troops into 3 fronts or concentrate superior forces to wipe out one place first. It depends on how Zhu Zheng arranges it. However, when he thought that Tianhai City had become someone else's target, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. Fortunately, he had considered this result before and told the people in Tianhai City in advance. Zhou Kuer and the others need not say more. As long as they don't leave the shelter, even if the Tianlong pirate squadron attacks with all their strength, they can't hurt them. That is a top-level defensive fortification that can resist missile bombardment. As for Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, and Qin Jingguan, it depends on whether they strictly follow Zhang Yi's instructions. The other side dispatched 3 groups of troops this time, but Zhu Zheng was not in a hurry. The Tianlong pirates? This group of rabble is simply tired of living, and they dare to touch our Huashu country. We will settle accounts with them later. Now we must first eliminate the invading enemies. Zhu Zheng's eyes turned and fell on Zhang Yi and Gao Chongkong. Chaos, Tianhai City is your territory, and you are very familiar with it. So you lead the Tengu team to Tianhai City and deal with the people of the Tianlong pirates first. Zhang Yi heard this and was relieved. Although the number of pirates is large, in his opinion, their strength should not be comparable to that of the Eclipse Moon, who are all elite. It is much easier to deal with them. Zhu Zheng asked him to go to Tianhai City, obviously to take care of him and take into account his strength. Of course, here refers to... It was Zhu Zheng who judged Zhang Yi's strength. Yes, Commander. Zhang Yi took on the task. Zhu Zheng looked at Gao Chongkong again. King of Wheels, those in Linhai City are from Eclipse Moon. You lead the Samsara squad to stop them. But don't rush to fight them to the death. After all, they have the power of prophecy and are not easy to deal with. Use your own abilities to delay them and avoid a fight to the death. Then wait for the Tengu squad to finish dealing with the pirates before joining forces with you. Deal with Eclipse Moon together to avoid too many casualties. Gao Chongkong, yes, Commander. People have been arranged for both groups to deal with them. Next, there is still the extreme demon organization in Huazhou City that no one is going to deal with. Zhu Zheng's eyes turned to Tu Yunlai. Zhu Rong, you lead 500 Yanyan guards under your command to Huazhou. When Zhang Yi heard this code name, he subconsciously began to analyze Tu Yunlai's abilities. The god of fire Zhu Rong, an absolutely powerful god in ancient times. Tu Yunlai's ability is fire? No, it is not so easy to judge. Zhang Yi thought, just like I would use chaos to conceal my true ability, Tu Yunlai's code name might also be a kind of concealment. Half of Tu Yunlai's face was hidden in the wide robe, and his expression could not be seen clearly. But from his eyes, one could feel the burning will to fight. Yes, Commander. Lan Xinqing raised an objection. General Zhu, if the Yanyan guards are used, who will guard Blizzard City? Blizzard City implements full military management. Everyone performs their duties on a fixed route. Now that Tu Yunlai, who is responsible for defending Blizzard City, has been transferred, it is inevitable that the defense of Blizzard City will be weakened. Chapter 732. Sword pointing to Tianhai. Facing Lan Xinqing's question, Zhu Zheng crossed his hands on the table and said with a firm look, the biggest contradiction at the moment is the invasion of foreign enemies. We must win a perfect victory at all costs. Blizzard City's defense is strong enough. Even if Zhu Rong and his 500 Yanyan elites are missing, it will not have much impact. Lan Xinqing frowned slightly, thought about it, and did not continue to speak. It would be rude for him to continue to question the things that the leader has already decided. This is not the style of an excellent official. Zhu Zheng slapped the table. Now, start the action. We must end this war outside the country before they wreak havoc. Absolutely. We can't let them go deep into the heart of the Central Plains. Zhang Yi and others stood up together and responded loudly, yes. The voice was clean and neat, and then Zhang Yi, Gao Changkong, and Tu Yunlai left the meeting room without hesitation. Time waits for no one. The three foreign forces have almost reached the harbor of the coastal city at this time. If they are late, I don't know how many people will suffer. Linhai City and Tianhai City are okay. After all, both places had suffered a disaster, and there were few living people left in the two cities. Tianhai City had Zhang Yi's previous warning and was prepared. However, Huazhou City was facing the attack of 500 members of the Extreme Demon, and I am afraid that there will be another bloody storm. This is why Zhu Zheng rarely sent Tu Yunlai. Huazhou City must be saved. That is the face of their entire Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi and others walked out of the meeting room and walked downstairs quickly. Zhang Yi immediately contacted Zhou Ke, who was far away in Tianhai City. It was midnight, and Zhou Kun woke up after a while. Seeing the call from Zhang Yi, she was full of joy. Hey, Zhang Yi, why did you think of calling me so late? Could it be that you... Zhang Yi said quickly, listen, Tianhai City is in danger. Eclipse moon brought people back to make trouble, and a group of pirates are near the sea, and will arrive in Tianhai City soon. All of you are not allowed to go out. Go to the basement immediately. I will be in Tianhai City soon. Zhou Ke's face suddenly became serious. She lifted the straps of her pajamas, and her two white and slender legs turned to the edge of the bed to put on slippers. Okay, I'll notify everyone right away. Don't be afraid, they can't break into the shelter. I'll be there in half an hour at most. Zhang Yi quickly explained what happened and hung up the phone. After that, he called Chun Jingguan at the Chaoyu base. Because the enemy came from the sea, the first to suffer was the seaport of the Chaoyu base. Chun Jingguan was still awake at this time. There were still thousands of people in the Chaoyu base. He had to manage the affairs of the base every day and went to bed late. When Zhang Yi's phone rang, he quickly answered it. Boss, why are you still not asleep so late? Zhang Yi was too lazy to talk nonsense with him and quickly explained the cause and effect. I asked you to prepare for the battle. How are you doing? Chun Jingguan's face became serious, and he replied with trepidation. Everything has been done as you ordered. Everyone is resting in the shelter, and the strategic materials have been moved away. There is nothing on the harbor except some large containers that are difficult to move. Zhang Yi nodded. Very good. You stay hidden and wait for my order to act. After Zhang Yi finished the call, he found that there were only him, Tu Yunlai, and Gao Changkong in the elevator. Zhang Yi glanced at them, thought about it, and didn't know what to say. He and Gao Changkong were not very familiar with each other, and he had never said a few words to Tu Yunlai. Therefore, there was no way to talk now. Everyone should do their own job, and solve the things within their own tasks first. However, Tu Yunlai spoke first. He said in a muffled voice, I will deal with the group of wanderers in Huazhou City as soon as possible. Then I will support you. If you encounter danger and cannot solve it yourself, you should hide. Wait for our support. As the director of the operations department, Tu Yunlai is also a figure in the upper echelons of the power center of Blizzard City. In this battle, he also wanted to make great contributions and then grab more capital for his future. However, he was indeed qualified to say such things. The 500 Yanyan guards he led to carry out the mission this time were the most elite in the Yanyan troops. Among them were 10 Delta-level elite aliens and 30 excellent aliens from Beta to Gamma levels. The rest were also well-trained and fully armed elite warriors. Zhang Yi shrugged his shoulders. He was not very interested in merits. As long as he could annihilate Eclipse Moon and restore stability to the Jiangnan region, especially the area where he lived. Well, I will ask you to come and support us when necessary. Gao Changkong smiled, but did not respond to Tu Yunlia's words. Instead, he looked at Zhang Yi. I'm still waiting for you to come and annihilate Eclipse Moon with us. Don't forget that Eclipse Moon is our biggest goal. Without Zhang Yi's ability to shield foresight, dealing with Eclipse Moon is not an easy task. Even if Gao Changkong holds the power of reincarnation, he still has to take great risks. Zhang Yi sensed something strange in the tone of Gao Changkong and Tu Yunlai. As Deng Yuanbo said, the top leaders of Blizzard City are also divided into different factions. They are fighting openly and secretly, and competing with each other. However, as an outsider, he is not involved in the power struggle, so he is not guarded. What a trouble. Zhang Yi thought so in his heart. He has no interest in power, and even thinks that it will only put people in danger. Before Zhang Yi replied, Gao Changkong said, I heard about the Tianlong pirates in the Southern Sea area from the Iron Blood Squad. The strength is indeed good, but if there is no Tianlong king in person, the strength of the squads under his command is just SSO. With your strength, it should not be difficult to deal with them. The Tianlong pirates are very famous and have tens of thousands of people. But in this era, where the top aliens decide the outcome of the war, it does not mean that they have the strength to sweep everything. Otherwise, Blizzard City would not have needed to send out the Celestial Squad to deal with Eclipse Moon. 300,000 defense forces could easily crush them. According to the data obtained by Blizzard City, only 2 investigation teams are needed to destroy a force like the Tianlong pirates. And if only one of the squads came, the Tengu squad led by Zhang Yi could completely defeat them. So, in the eyes of everyone, the 4th squad of the Tianlong pirates was just a smokescreen that was tempted by Eclipse Moon to create trouble. Zhang Yi nodded. We can only know the opponent's strength after the fight. He never underestimates any opponent. Arrogance is the original sin that leads to death. Chapter 733, Heading to the Battlefield. Zhang Yi came downstairs. The Tengu team was ready to go, just waiting for Zhang Yi's order to act. And Zhang Yi didn't say a word. Let's go. Everyone left the combat command center quickly. There were armored vehicles waiting outside to take them to the airport. On Zhang Yi's left sat Yang Xinxin, on his right was Liang Yue, and Huahua was held in Yang Xinxin's arms. Zhang Yi first briefly explained their combat mission to everyone. We have to go to Tianhai City first and destroy the Tianlong pirates who landed there. Tianhai City is my territory. I am familiar with the terrain there, and I have my spies there. So the battle is in our favor. Everyone just practice what you have trained on weekdays. After saying this, he specifically reminded Liang Yue and Huahua. During the battle, you stay closer to Xinxin. This is her first time on the battlefield. You protect her well. Liang Yue nodded. Of course. Huahua opened her mouth wide. Meows. Yang Xinxin did not refuse Zhang Yi's special care. Although she also awakened her superpowers, she needed to adapt to her abilities on the battlefield. What's more, her ability is very special and the risk is relatively high. With the protection of Hua and Liang Yue, her life can be guaranteed. As for the tactical arrangements, Bailey, I'll leave it to you. Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing. Before I say anything, all the action plans are decided by you. Professional matters should be left to professionals. Bailey Chongqing is definitely better at fighting. Zhang Yi is not stupid enough to enter a field he is not good at. Bailey Chongqing was a little excited. He didn't expect Zhang Yi to trust him so much. The leader's decentralization is the greatest recognition of subordinates. Yes. Bailey Chongqing didn't say much nonsense and accepted Zhang Yi's order. This decision also made others feel relieved. If Zhang Yi, an outsider, forced to command, they would be nervous. It is one thing to admit that Zhang Yi's personal strength is strong, but command ability and personal combat power are two completely unrelated things. The three teams, the Tengu team, the Samsara team, and the Yanyan team, quickly rushed to the airport. Searchlights cut through the night sky, and Blizzard City was filled with murder. Tonight was another sleepless night. As fighter planes took off one after another, the three teams also flew to their respective battlefields. At this time in Tianhai City, due to Zhang Yi's early warning, the shelter and the three forces had gathered personnel and supplies in a safe area in advance. After the pirates of the Tianlong pirates arrived at the coast, they immediately changed to snowmobiles and rushed to the coast along the ice. Little ones, plunder as much as you want. Kill all the men here and take away all the food and resources. Canute laughed loudly, and thousands of pirates in the pirate group also laughed wildly, ready to plunder. As long as this deal is done today, they don't need to go to sea again within a year. Everyone has heard of the wealth of Tianhai City, and from now on, they have made a great name in the pirate world. What about Huashu country?
They're still going to be plundered by them.
But after this group of excited pirates rushed ashore, they soon found that something was wrong. Because of the huge Tianhai City, after searching for a long time, they didn't see a single person. The city was like a dead city, and even traces of human activities were hard to find. Several major bases had already transferred population and resources half a month ago. What was left on the ground were only some buildings, which were also buried by heavy snow. It seemed as if there had never been any human activities. Only in the harbor area of the Chaoyu base did they find some large containers with some supplies inside. But they were all cars or large machinery, as well as scattered supplies, which were not very useful and not convenient to transport. Canute immediately realized that something was wrong. He immediately asked the people of Eclipse Moon what was going on here. Fengguangyuanren gave the answer. According to the data, there are only 4 forces left in this city now, and their resources have been concentrated. As long as you kill them, you can easily plunder most of the resources in Tianhai City. After thinking for a moment, Canute believed that Fengguangyuanren did not lie to him. Because Tianhai City has huge resources, and at this time, it is impossible to transfer a large number of them. There is only one conclusion, that those important resources have been hidden. As long as they can find the location where they're buried, to be exact, the location where the local forces are hiding, they can get those supplies. Canute immediately ordered his men to find the hiding places of the major forces, even if they had to dig 3 feet underground. They didn't know that at this time, thousands of people in the Chaoyu base were right under their feet. Blizzard City. Zhu Zheng arranged for Zhang Yi and his 3 teams to go out to fight. He himself was also thinking about how to solve the subsequent problems. Jidao Mo and Eclipse Moon both belong to the Ronin group. The largest organization is only a few hundred people. However, the Tianlong pirates crisscross the southern seas and have the power to threaten the country. Large forces are easier to talk to and deal with. The people of the Tianlong pirates actually dared to attack the Jiangnan district. Their appetite is too big. We must teach them a lesson. Otherwise, the southeastern coastal area will never have peace. Zhu Zheng said in a deep voice. Lan Xinxing heard this and bowed and said, the sea area is patrolled by warships from the East China Sea District. They must have been guided by the strange person who predicted the eclipse moon to avoid the patrol. Moreover, the islands in the southeastern sea are scattered all over the place, and we can't confirm the location of their headquarters now. It's not easy to conquer. Zhu Zheng's eyes became deep. This is not difficult. As long as we can confirm the location of their headquarters, then a shot of the god of death of love can completely solve the problem. As for how to confirm the headquarters of the Tianhai pirates, you only need to send spies, and there will always be gains. But the problem is that the god of death of love cannot be abused. The Tianhai pirates are easy to eliminate, but once the god of death of love is used, it may start a bad beginning. In the future, the entire planet will use this weapon on a large scale. Lan Xinqing smiled slightly when he heard this. We have other ways to deal with them. Zhu Zheng looked up and glanced at Lan Xinqing. Oh, what do you think? Lan Xinqing smiled and said, the Starry Sea is full of islands. They rely on imports for both food and energy. After the end of the world, sea transportation is more difficult, and their ways of obtaining supplies are more limited. We only need to make some moves in these two aspects to completely cut off their food supply, and a large number of their ships have become scrap metal without diesel. Zhu Zheng's expression moved, and he smiled and said, you always come up with something new for me. Chapter 730, for Pirates. With the influence of Huashu country, as long as they communicate with the major regions where the Tianhai pirates import energy and food, they can cause great trouble to them. The advantage of the Tianhai pirates does not lie in how strong they are. In fact, the real combat power of tens of thousands of rabble is not strong. Relying on the complex terrain of the Starry Sea, they can dominate one side. If there is a conflict with the surrounding major powers, their small fish are not enough. Cut off their food and energy, and let them all be trapped on the island. This is why the Tianhai king did not dare to take action against Huashu country. Zhu Zheng thought about it and contacted Xinjiang district. Let Xinjiang district come forward and communicate with several major countries around the Tianhai pirates, asking them not to trade with the Tianhai pirates. Even if the end of the world comes, Huashu country's influence is still there. Besides, it's just because of a group of pirates, no one will offend Huashu country because of this. Therefore, this problem can be solved quickly. This is a later matter, so I won't go into details here. Tianhai City. The people of the Tianhai pirates began to plunder everywhere. Tianhai City is too big, although the important resources have basically been taken by several major forces. However, some large machinery factories, raw material warehouses, and some small supermarkets have not been completely cleared. These resources that the major forces disdain to clear are all good things for those pirates. After all, they are in the resource-poor southern waters, and they have to rely on robbing for food, clothing, and daily necessities. Therefore, the garbage that the major forces in Tianhai City don't want is good things in their eyes. In such an environment, it is actually difficult for the bases of the major forces not to be discovered. Because other places are covered with ice and snow, only the shelter and the territory of the three major forces are cleaned up. But even if they find it, they can't open the shelter. A group of pirates who are used to naval battles in the southern waters don't know how to open the reinforced concrete that even missiles can hardly blast open. And Zhang Yi's shelter, because of its tall and gorgeous, has attracted the covetousness of many pirates. They used various weapons outside to try to break through, but they couldn't even blast open a layer of wall. Inside the shelter, Uncle Yu took everyone to hide in the underground floor, using surveillance equipment to check everything outside. Zhou Haimei and Yang Xia looked worried. Uncle Yu held a machine gun in his hand, with a bullet belt wrapped around his body, and his face was full of majesty. Once any danger occurred, he would be the first to stand in front and fight for the chance of escape for others. Zhou Qi said calmly, "It's okay. They can't break the defense of the shelter. And Zhang Yi and the others will be here soon." At this moment, a deafening sound suddenly rang out outside. A pirate cadre turned into a 5-meter-tall, green giant and began to violently ram the main door of the shelter. The door did not move at all, but the sound of the collision was terrifying. Even though everyone trusted the defensive capabilities of the shelter, they still couldn't help feeling uneasy. These pirates are inhumane, and they leave no one alive wherever they go. In the battle between the major forces in Tianhai City, perhaps some humanity would be retained, and people who had no power to resist would not be killed. But for these pirates, any fluke mentality is stupid. Zhou Kur was calm on the surface, but she was a little anxious inside. She hurriedly called Zhang Yi to explain the situation here. At this time, an armed helicopter flew straight across the night sky and came over Tianhai City. After receiving Zhou Kur's news, Zhang Yi's brows could not help but frown. He immediately ordered the pilot to let the helicopter land at the coordinates of his shelter. Anyway, they are here to kill pirates, so it doesn't matter where they kill them. Zhu Zheng has already said that on the battlefield, Zhang Yi is the supreme commander. The pilot immediately flew towards the junction of Xishan District and Lujiang District according to the order. Not long after, the pirates who were still excited to attack the shelter were surprised to find that there was a roar of a giant dragon above their heads. They looked up and saw that it was not a giant dragon, but a huge armed helicopter. Bang! A deafening sound appeared in the air. The giant aliens had exploded instantly. Zhang Yi changed the bullet very calmly and then aimed at the second person. The huge white sniper rifle was in his hand. Killing lower-level aliens was not much different from killing ordinary people. However, in order to save bullets, he only killed aliens among the pirates. Bailey Chongqing took the lead. There was still a height of hundreds of meters under his feet. He shouted, "Let's go." Then the whole person fell directly down like a cannonball. Others followed closely. There was no place suitable for helicopters to land below, but it did not pose a problem for this group of top aliens. In order to avoid becoming a live target in the air, they chose to jump directly from the plane with the enhanced aliens taking other aliens with them. Only Meng Xiu stayed with Zhang Yi. Her function was to investigate and treat, not to fight. Even Yang Xinxin rode Huahua to join the battle. In Zhang Yi's vision, Yang Xinxin rode Huahua and began to test her ability. In the direction where her hands pointed, two pirates suddenly pounced on each other, strangled each other's necks, and then died together. Yang Xinxin smiled happily. Zhang Yi looked around her and helped her to eliminate any threats as soon as he found them. There were more than 100 pirates around the shelter, including 5 aliens. Seeing this group of people falling from the sky, they had no fear. After all, they were people who licked blood on the edge of a knife and had long been accustomed to life and death. So they picked up the guns in their hands and started shooting. Bailey Chongqing took the lead and took out 2 pieces of black weapons from the weapon box behind him and assembled them together. It was a huge Feng Tian painted halberd. The painted pole was painted in gold, and the black halberd body was decorated with deep golden patterns, which looked very domineering. Facing the pirates' volleys, he did not dodge or evade. Ordinary bullets shot at his body were not even enough to tickle him. Just a forward charge and a swing. Dozens of pirates in front of him were cut into 2 pieces like bamboo poles. Bailey Chongqing himself was a little surprised. These pirates, are they so weak? Originally, he thought that the pirates who roamed the southern seas at least had some strength. But unexpectedly, they were so weak. But thinking about it carefully, it was very reasonable. After all, the southern seas are all weak countries. Even if dozens of countries merge together, they are not as strong as a Jiangnan region. Therefore, such a group of pirates is enough to dominate one side. But if they really encounter the special forces of the aliens of a big country, they will become a small fish force. Bang! Another deafening explosion sounded on the battlefield. Bailey Chongqing raised his head and found that the head of an alien who attacked him was gone. He suddenly realized. Looking around, he found that all the pirates who showed supernatural powers were killed one by Zhang Yi from high altitude. Bailey Chongqing couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Even he didn't dare to catch the holy silver bullet shot by Zhang Yi who used thunder, and he had to retreat carefully. Then to deal with other aliens, it was really one-shot one. Who said that thermal weapons can't deal with aliens? As long as the bullets were fired by aliens using their abilities, aliens would find it difficult to deal with them. Chapter 735 Heading to Chaoyu Harbor. The Tengu team led by Zhang Yi arrived at Tianhai City. The first stop was naturally his base camp. More than 100 pirates were wiped out by the Tengu team in less than a minute. Bailey Chongqing caught a tongue, and Meng Xiu stepped forward and injected him with a shot of truth serum. Soon, the tongue told Zhang Yi and his team all the information about the Tianhai pirates. They are in Chaoyu harbor. Our captain is Canute, the captain of the 4th Division of the Tianhai pirates. The man captured alive was a small fry, and the information he revealed was useful, but not much. Zhang Yi asked him about the strength of the 4th Division, and he just said that it was very powerful and rarely had opponents in the southern waters. This sentence was true for him, but to Zhang Yi it was like shit. These underdogs in the southern waters have never seen a few real masters. Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing. Bailey, what do you think? Bailey Chongqing thought for a while and said, according to the intelligence obtained by the district, the team coming is the 4th squad, Captain Canute. According to the rating given by the intelligence system, he is a Delta-level mutant with an ability index of 8,000 points. In addition, there are 4 members under his command, with strengths between 4,000 and 6,000 points.
But
he pointed to a corpse in the crowd. One cadre has been killed by you with one shot. Zhang Yi thought for a while after hearing this. The intelligence given by the district is correct. Among the 3 enemy teams that are invading, the enemy in Tianhai City is the weakest. There is no way. After all, according to the algorithm of the headquarters, Zhang Yi's strength is weaker than Tu Yunlai and Gao Chongkong. In addition, Zhang Yi is familiar with Tianhai City, so let him deal with the enemies here first, and then go to Linhai City to meet up with the Samsara team to solve the problem of Eclipse Moon. Then let's go directly to Chaoyu Harbor. This battle must be won quickly, and Linhai City is the main battlefield,
Zhang Yi said.
As he spoke, he turned on the satellite phone and talked to Chen Jingguan. Although Chen Jingguan had already hidden underground, many monitoring devices were deployed around the Chaoyu base. Intelligence about the Tianhai pirates can be obtained. After understanding the opponent's deployment, it will be convenient for Zhang Yi and his team to take action. At this time, the door of the shelter suddenly opened. Uncle Yu and his team ran over. Zhang Yi. They were very happy to see Zhang Yi. Zhou Kur was wearing a thick down jacket with a white fox fur around her neck, looking elegant and moving. Zhang Yi glanced at them and said calmly, "The battle is not over yet. You all stay in the shelter honestly and are not allowed to come out." But Uncle Yu said, "Let us go over to help you. It's always good to have one more helper." Fatty Sue also plucked up the courage to come over. "Boss, we haven't fought side by side for a long time. Take me with you. At least I can play a role in controlling the situation on the battlefield." At this time, heavy snow was falling from the sky. In such an environment, it was indeed more suitable to have an ice and snow alien to fight. But Zhang Yi still shook his head. "You stay in the shelter. If necessary, I will call you to act together." Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue looked a little disappointed. Zhang Yi explained, "According to the current judgment, the strength of the enemy is within the controllable range. We are enough to deal with them. But for the sake of safety, you and the people from the 3 major bases should not take action for the time being. In case of special circumstances, you need to provide support from the outside." Although the opponent's strength is the weakest among the 3 areas, Zhang Yi did not dare to be careless. He must make proper arrangements. Of course, doing so also has the idea of protecting Uncle Yu and others. Uncle Yu and Fatty Sue heard the words and then looked at the other soldiers of the Tengu team, and they also understood that what Zhang Yi said was correct. Now is an important war period, and they can't do anything reckless. The 2 nodded. "If you need anything, tell us at any time. We will rush over right away." Zhang Yi nodded and was about to leave, but after thinking about it, he took out a box of holy silver bullets from his body and gave it to Uncle Yu. The materials used in this thing are relatively rare, and Zhang Yi currently only has more than 3,000 rounds. Therefore, he only gave Uncle Yu 20 rounds. In addition, he gave Uncle Yu a big black guy. That was a good thing he bought from the Blizzard City arsenal. The latest anti-material sniper rifle, GPW 2 generation. The power is twice as strong as the Barrett of the previous generation. It was originally an airborne weapon and not suitable for single soldiers. But it was just right for Uncle Yu. Zhang Yi considered that although Uncle Yu's ability type was relatively monotonous, as a veteran of many years, he had excellent combat qualities. Therefore, giving him a heavy sniper with holy silver bullets can enable him to show his good strength. This is called insufficient strength, equipment to make up for it. Uncle Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. He excitedly took the weapon Zhang Yi gave him, which also meant that Zhang Yi agreed to let him join the battle at a critical moment, and it was not a joke. At this time, Zhou Kuo and Yang Xie came over. Yang Xie handed Zhang Yi a large lunchbox, which contained the supernatural food she carefully prepared. Save these for the war. Zhou Kuo handed Zhang Yi a box of healing potions. Zhang Yi felt a little warm in his heart, but he didn't have time to be affectionate here. The war was tight. He nodded, took out the snowmobile, and led the members of the Tengu team to Chaoyu Harbor. On the other two fronts, the Yenyun Guard led by Tu Yunlai and the Samsara team led by Gao Chongkong also arrived at their respective battlefields. The first step is that they need to find their opponents. Then, it's an annihilation war. But Tu Yunlia's mission is simpler and more direct. After the Jidao demon arrived in Huazhou, more than 500 people began to rush to the place where the crowd gathered and began to plunder. At the beginning, they clashed with the local forces in Huazhou. After Tu Yunlai led the Yenyun Guard to arrive, they directly divided their troops to various places to suppress the rebellion. In Linhai City, the Samsara team did not dare to act rashly after arriving. Gao Chongkong knew that Eclipse Moon came prepared this time, and with the witch's prophecy, the pressure on them was very great. So, after the helicopter landed, he did not rush to let the team members act first. I will use the power of Samsara to test them first, and then formulate an action plan. The safest way at present is to wait for Zhang Yi and others to support us. As long as we can block the opponent's prophecy power, we can have an absolute upper hand. Linhai City is already a dead city, and there is no need to worry about causing casualties to ordinary people. Therefore, they have enough space to exert their own strength. Everything that happened on the three-party battlefield was seen by the high-level officials of Blizzard City headed by Zhu Zheng. This time, the attention of the entire Blizzard City is focused here. Zhu Zheng absorbed the lesson from the last time and decided to give the initiative of the battlefield to the aliens. Times have changed, and aliens have become the dominant force on the battlefield. And their excessive intervention will only lead to the aliens being tied up. Now, the only assistance that the region can provide to the aliens, besides long-range bombing, is navigation ability. Zhang Yi's Tengu team was divided into two tanks, maintaining a distance of 1 kilometer, and marched towards Chaoyu Harbor from the left and right lines. He kept in touch with Chen Jingguan and asked about the movements of Chaoyu Harbor. What's the current situation of the pirates? Chen Jingguan replied, about 70% of the troops are outside to plunder supplies, and the remaining 30% are in the harbor area. They seem to know that you will come, so they rely on our old fortifications to ambush. Chapter 736 Obstacles. After receiving the information from Chen Jingguan, Zhang Yi felt more at ease. Most of the pirates are a mob, not a professional army. Therefore, after arriving in Tianhai City, the first thing they thought of was to plunder supplies. At this time, 70% of the Tianlong pirates' forces were outside. Then the ones left behind at the harbor base were definitely a small number of elite troops, led by Captain Canute. According to the information provided by the region, it would be no problem for their Tengu team to destroy the 4th Division of the Tianlong pirates. Bailey Chongqing had already unfolded the three-dimensional map in the carriage and began to arrange the battle plan. Captain, you're good at long-range sniping, so you should go to the commanding heights at a first, which is here. Qi Guangming, you and the captain will be responsible for long-range fire suppression. The harbor is a cone-shaped terrain. We will attack from both sides. The coastline has been blocked by ships from the East China Sea region, so we are not afraid of them escaping. When the time comes, let Liang Yue and I deal with the pirate leader Canute. The others will be responsible for cleaning up the miscellaneous soldiers. There was nothing wrong with Bailey Chongqing's battle plan. They were encircling and suppressing with an absolute advantage in force. At the level of high-level aliens, they were in an absolute advantage. Most of the ordinary pirates in the pirate group were just live targets in their eyes, and they could only shoot with simple AKs. After Bailey Chongqing finished speaking, he looked at Zhang Yi and asked for his opinion. Zhang Yi nodded. No problem, let's do it. Remember, safety first. Never underestimate your opponent. A group of people said in unison, understood. Zhang Yi and his team arrived near Chaoyu harbor in less than an hour. Then they got out of the car and chose to walk forward to avoid being ambushed by the enemy. In terms of defense, their battle suits are much better than armored vehicles. Therefore, the role of the tank is only to travel. Everyone moved forward in a team of 3. It was snowing, but the vision was not blurred. Bailey Chongqing winked at Yi Jikong. Yi Jikong understood and immediately took out a silver metal box from the backpack behind him. After the box was opened, 3 small drones flew out. Yi Jikong controlled them and flew towards the harbor base. But soon, before the 3 drones could take pictures of anything, the vision suddenly blurred and the 3 drones fell from the sky. Yi Jikong frowned. They have a very strong anti-reconnaissance awareness. Although drone technology is relatively mature, it is a machine after all, and it is easy to malfunction due to electromagnetic interference. The Tianhai pirates are active in the southern waters, and there are many experienced soldiers and mercenaries among them. Bailey Chongqing sighed helplessly. After the end of the world, modern technology can play a smaller and smaller role on the battlefield. Zhang Yi glanced at Meng Xiu. Can you detect the distribution of local troops with your ability? Meng Xiu said, my ability covers only 3 kilometers. And our current position is at least 5 kilometers away from there. Zhang Yi looked at Bailey Chongqing. Bailey Chongqing thought for a moment. Now the heavy snow has covered almost all buildings. The periphery of Chaoyu base is a large flat snowfield, and it is difficult to find a suitable shelter on the snowfield. If you get close to 3 kilometers, it is very easy to be discovered by the enemy. However, if you can approach quickly, they are still the party with absolute advantage. Although the pirates are defending Chaoyu base, they don't know the terrain. On the contrary, Zhang Yi has shown everyone the complete topographic map of Chaoyu base before setting off. Bailey Chongqing made a decision quickly. Keep going. Xuemiao, you raise a storm to interfere with their vision. Now that everyone is playing their cards openly, there is no need to hide. Xuemiao said, yes. His ability is wind, which is easy to use in such a blizzard. As long as a storm is created, a natural shelter can be formed to block the vision. Xuemiao summoned a huge storm, forming a blizzard in a corner of the Chaoyu base. Then the members of the Tengu team took advantage of the blizzard and rushed directly to the harbor of the Chaoyu base. The changes here quickly attracted the attention of the pirates. Canute sat on a chariot full of snow, revealing a mouthful of shark-like sharp teeth. Is it the regular army of the Jiangnan regions? Little guys, start killing, he roared, and the pirates around him also raised their guns frantically and roared wildly. These desperate people will not be afraid no matter who they are facing. They are people who put their own lives and deaths aside. On the snowy plain, the sound of gunfire has been dense, and the muzzle is pointed at the direction where Zhang Yi and his team are moving forward. But these ordinary bullets can't do any damage to combat uniforms. Not to mention their poor marksmanship, they can't shoot through the blizzard to hit everyone. Chapter 736 Obstacles. Bailey Chongqing rushed to the front, and he shouted in a low voice, "Don't worry about those trash. Kill the aliens first. Resolve the battle as quickly as possible." Everyone loaded their guns, and of course they used standard weapons and origin bullets. Da-da-da-da-da. Over at the harbor base, the pirates stepped on the iron boxes, laughed wildly, and shot in this direction. Their aliens did not take the initiative to attack, but lurked in the dark, waiting for the opportunity to fight in close combat. But just when Zhang Yi and his team were about 1,000 meters away from the harbor defense line, a very abrupt stand appeared. Bailey Chongqing rushed to the front, and his whole body was bounced back at once, rolling on the ground, and then he stabilized his body skillfully. Others were also caught off guard, and bumped into that stand.
What is this?
There's a wall in front, a transparent wall. In a place they could not see, a transparent wall blocked their way. Zhang Yi's eyes condensed, and the opponent's alien took action. He raised the white owl in his hand. Get out of the way. The team members made way for a path, and Zhang Yi fired at the invisible wall. However, the holy silver bullet that could break the magic actually stopped in front of the wall, and then fell straight to the ground. Even the holy silver bullet is useless?
What kind of ability is this?
Just when they were unable to move forward, the sound of an engine was heard in the distance. The brave pirates rode on snowmobiles, crossed the container defense line of Chaoyu port, and rushed over here. We caught it, and it's a big fish. Haha, how much supplies can we exchange with the Jiangnan district with these people's lives? We sent it. This trip was not in vain. Chapter 737. Drawing a prison on the ground. Zhang Yi and his companions looked at the thousands of pirates rushing over like a group of hateful locusts. They actually dared to take the initiative to charge. Are they really looking for deaths? Wu Di sneered disdainfully. They don't know what kind of enemy they are facing yet. Pirates can only stir up trouble when they are at sea. Coming to land, they are equivalent to crippling one of their own arms. Not to mention ordinary squadrons. Even if the Dragon King came, he would not dare to fight with the investigation team. So in Wu Di's eyes, these people are undoubtedly looking for death. Zhang Yi looked at the group of pirates coldly, without saying anything. For some reason, he had a bad feeling in his heart. After thinking about it, Zhang Yi took a few steps back. As a result, his body once again felt the feeling of being blocked. Zhang Yi touched his hand back, and sure enough, their way had been blocked by the invisible wall. Zhang Yi immediately said, "Observe the surroundings. We may have fallen into a trap." When everyone heard Zhang Yi say this, they immediately began to observe the surroundings. This observation immediately made them find something wrong. At some point, a huge transparent cage appeared around them, trapping them all. Even the area above their heads and under their feet was not left out. At this moment, thousands of pirates had already surrounded them with weapons in hand. They had a grim smile on their faces, as if they had seen a fish being hooked. However, they did not rush to attack, let alone approach. A path was opened among the pirates, and a skinny, tall, shark-faced man walked out. He was the captain of the 4th Division of the Tianhai pirates, Canute. Canute's eyes swept over the members of the Tengu squad with a cold look. "Since you are here, introduce yourself." Zhang Yi was not panicked at this time. He did not even pay attention to Canute, but instructed the team members. Try to break through. Unless the other party has an Epsilon-level alien, I don't believe there is any barrier of supernatural power that cannot be broken through. Upon hearing this, the team members immediately began to attack and test every corner. Bullets, supernatural powers, and even fists were used. But no matter how they attacked, the transparent barrier did not change at all. It did not have strong power and could not bounce back the attacks of the Tengu team members. It just absorbed all the attacks like the sea. Seeing that no one paid attention to him, Canute shrugged helplessly. "You are so rude. You don't even know basic manners." He extended his right index finger to everyone. "But I can tell you, don't waste your energy. As long as you enter this cage, you can't escape no matter what. Now, you are a group of birds in a cage. Among the pirates, there is a strange man named Chen Siyu. In his sight, the huge space where Zhang Yi and others are located is a huge cubic cage. His ability is called drawing the ground as a prison. Just like the trap used by the bird, the cage is set up in advance to lock a range area. After anyone enters it, the drawing of the ground as a prison is triggered, and the cage is officially activated. Any prey that enters it can no longer escape. But in order to maintain this cage, he himself cannot move. Once his body moves or his body dies, this spell will be lifted. This is the rule of his ability." The smile on Canute's face quickly disappeared, and he waved his right hand. "Kill them." As soon as this was said, thousands of pirates laughed wildly and pulled the trigger in their hands. From all directions, countless bullets formed a line of fire and shot into the cage. Defense! Zhang Yi shouted. His two-world knot was deployed at the first time to protect himself, Liang Yue, Hua, and Yang Xinxin. There was no way. The range of the two-world knot was only 1 meter. He was invincible within a radius of 1 meter, but he could not protect beyond 1 meter. Fortunately, these bullets did not pose much threat to everyone. So, everyone used their skills to resist the dense bullet attack. This is wrong. Our attack can't be launched, but they can attack us in this area. Is the siege ability used by the other party one way? Bailey Chongqing shouted loudly, while using the Feng Tianhai in his hand to block the bullets. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry at all. Although he was in a cage, as long as his extra-dimensional space could be used, he was still invincible. At this moment, a stranger among the pirates jumped out. He raised his hands high, and the broken ice on the ground rushed up into the sky, and then condensed into a giant ice ball with a diameter of tens of meters in his hands. Under his control, the giant ice balls smashed towards everyone like a cannonball. Bailey Chongqing was about to step forward to resist. But Zhang Yi thought that if the ice ball was broken, their space for action would be greatly limited. No matter how powerful they were, it would be difficult for them to exert their strength. Let me do it. Zhang Yi persuaded Bailey Chongqing to retreat. Liang Yue, Hua, protect me. After Zhang Yi said this, he unlocked the ability of the two worlds. The dimensional gate blocked the direction where the ice ball flew. The ice ball silently sank directly into Zhang Yi's space. Canute frowned. Tisk, is this the person that the Phoenix Court asked me to kill? Sure enough, as the intelligence said, there are some tricks in the defensibility. However, as long as you can't leave this cage, I can wear you out sooner or later. Many of the pirates have already raised shoulder guns and rocket launchers. Even if they are aliens, their abilities will sooner or later be exhausted. At that time, their flesh and blood will be ruthlessly destroyed by hot weapons. For the Tianhai pirates, this is a long hunt, and they have enough patience. However, Zhang Yi opened 2-dimensional gates and directly confiscated all the attacks from the 2 directions with his strongest firepower. The dimensional gate has a limit to its energy consumption, but this kind of thermal weapon attack, in order to reach the upper limit of its energy consumption, at least an entire arsenal must be emptied. But at this moment, Zhang Yi had a sudden idea. Attacks from the outside world can cross the cage barrier, but their attacks cannot be fired out. What is the basis for determining the boundary? After thinking about this, Zhang Yi made a bold attempt. He raised his hand and used the dimensional gate to collect a large amount of ammunition. Then he aimed at the pirates outside and reflected them. Swish! 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 The bullets flew back the way they came. Those pirates didn't have combat uniforms on them, and dozens of pirates were shot into sieves in an instant. Zhang Yi's eyes suddenly lit up, and a smile rose at the corner of his mouth. I know what this cage is about. Chapter 738 Dangerous Trap. Drawing a prison on the ground is a rule-based ability. Zhang Yi learned its rules through his own experiments. That is, once an object is defined as existing in the cage at the beginning of its formation, it can no longer leave the range of the cage. Objects that are not defined are not affected by the rules. For example, Zhang Yi and his team cannot shoot through the cage with bullets. But the bullets shot by pirates from the outside world are not affected and can even be bounced back. Bailey Chongqing and others have also discovered this rule. But the problem is that they still can't figure out how to get out of here. What if the other party stops attacking and just wastes time with them here, or changes the means of attack? What should they do? Canute thought so too. After seeing that Zhang Yi could bounce bullets, he immediately gave an order for all pirates to stop shooting. They stopped, but Zhang Yi would not stop. Zhang Yi showed a mischievous smile on his face, and his eyes swept across all the pirates at the scene. The alien who used his supernatural power to besiege them must be among them. As long as the alien was killed, the cage would disappear immediately without the source of power. Make some space for me. I'll count to 3. Everyone squats. Everyone didn't understand what Zhang Yi wanted to do, but Zhang Yi was the captain, so they had to obey his orders. 1. Zhang Yi opened his dimensional door. 2. Thick gun barrels appeared in the dimensional door. 3. Everyone squatted down immediately. And around Zhang Yi, in the huge space, the muzzles of 500 artillery pieces stretched out from the alien space. These were the large quantities of weapons that Zhang Yi, as the captain of the Tengu team, had asked Blizzard City for with his own authority. Those weapons were bulky and difficult to carry for ordinary aliens. Those weapons that had great power but were slowly eliminated due to the coming of the Ice Age. In his hands, they were still powerful. Zhang Yi had already loaded the 500 cannons with shells, and they were ready to be fired at any time. Today's weapons can be connected to intelligent systems and do not require manual operation. Zhang Yi simply used the intelligent operating system of the combat suit to issue an order. In an instant, 500 artillery pieces roared deafeningly and fired at all the pirates in all directions. Such a scene was unimaginable to anyone. One person could actually transform into a giant artillery turret in an instant. The pirates were too confident, so they were less than 200 meters away from the cage where Zhang Yi and his men were. A round of volleys of 500 artillery pieces was just like firecrackers blasting cow dung, blasting it into pieces and everywhere. But all that was flying in the sky were their broken bodies, which really looked like fireworks, colorful. As soon as the artillery appeared, Canute and other aliens had already reacted. Canute's body quickly became huge, and his clothes were torn apart by his bulging skin. His epidermis began to turn gray-blue. The texture of his skin was like a knife, and the corners of his mouth were stretched to the back of his ears. In an instant, he turned into a gray-blue giant shark that was more than 10 meters long. The huge body lay across the ground, but it was as flexible as if it was underwater. His body flexibly swept away dozens of shells, saving the lives of hundreds of pirates behind him. In other directions, there were also aliens working hard. But even so, they could not stop the 500 shells that were fired instantly. In just a moment, more than half of the 1,000 pirates of the 4th Division were killed. Zhang Yi sighed in his heart and said it was a pity. This kind of artillery salvo can only be used once, because he didn't have time to reload the 500 cannons. But the effect of this attack was already very impressive. It also verified his conjecture. That is, the objects in his space were not defined by the rules of drawing a prison. Bailey Chongqing and the others watched Zhang Yi put away the 500 cannons. At this time, Bailey Chongqing just understood why Zhang Yi asked for so many seemingly useless heavy firearms. Yi He and others looked at Zhang Yi, and their eyes also showed admiration. As expected of their captain, he thought of a way to crack the opponent's abilities so quickly. Canute looked at his men who had turned into pieces, listened to their painful wails, and looked at Zhang Yi with great anger. Damn bastard! I must kill you. Half of its huge body was immersed in the mud. The strange thing was that the ice, snow, and mud did not hinder him at all. Anything that touched his body would ripple like water. Canute stared at Zhang Yi and others in the cage. He wanted to launch an attack immediately and kill Zhang Yi and others. But when he thought of Zhang Yi's ability, he did not attack rashly. Zhang Yi's alien space can absorb almost all attacks and then bounce them back. Anger cannot bring him victory, but instead, he will make more mistakes. Zhang Yi was also thinking about how to break the cage. So many pirates were killed just now, but the cage is still there. In other words, the caster was not killed at all. Zhang Yi looked at the huge body of Canute. That alien must be protected by him. Although he could not escape from the cage for the time being, Zhang Yi was still quite confident. The other party had no way to deal with them. But at this moment, Gao Changkong's message appeared on the tactical eyepiece. Chaos, it's not good. The situation has changed. Don't rush to encircle and suppress the pirates. This is likely to be a huge trap. Zhang Yi's pupils shrank suddenly, and a chill ran down his back. What do you mean? In Tianhai City, Gao Changkong and the members of the Samsara squadron stood in a ruin. In front of them, there were more than a dozen corpses lying on the ground, and some of them were dressed exactly like the Eclipse force. The ones that appeared in Tianhai City are not the real Eclipse army at all. We have all been fooled by them. Gao Changgong's voice kept coming to Zhang Yi's ears. Think about it carefully. If they don't appear in Tianhai City, where else can they appear? Who are they most afraid of and want to kill the most? Zhang Yi widened his eyes, and the ominous feeling had enveloped him. His scalp even felt a little numb. The person that Eclipse wanted to kill the most was naturally him, who could crack the prediction ability of Mayumi Takeuchi. Canute split the shark's huge mouth and roared, "Ronin, aren't you going to show up yet?" Zhang Yi raised his head and looked into the distance. On a low hill, the faces of several old acquaintances appeared. Feng Guangyuan and his Eclipse aliens were all here. Chapter 739 Hunting. The aliens of Eclipse Moon did not go to Tianhai City, but appeared in Tianhai City, right in front of Zhang Yi and his team. Such a scene directly shocked the entire Blizzard City's top management. Inside the Combat Command Center, Zhu Zheng and others, who were originally calm and thought that the situation was under control, were a little panicked. How could this happen? Zhu Zheng stood up directly from his chair, and his sharp eyes swept over everyone at the scene. Our action plan is absolutely confidential, and we have not revealed the plan of dividing troops to the outside world. But how could they know that Zhang Yi's Tengu team is in Tianhai City? This mission is top secret. All the people who know the intelligence are the people in the command center except the 3 teams. Now it is almost certain that there must be an insider who leaked the information. Lan Xinqing's eyes looked at an area, which was the intelligence group responsible for communicating with the Tengu team. Lan Xinqing walked over there with a cold face. He came to the person in charge, Lin Kaidai. What is going on? Why did the information leak? Lin Kaidai is a woman in her 30s. She has a meticulous bun and looks dignified and elegant. Even when facing Lan Xinqing's questioning, she had a calm smile on her face. But as she smiled, her face turned pale. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and the whole person fell to the ground in an instant. There was a cry of surprise around. Lan Xinqing carefully opened her mouth and said to Zhu Zheng helplessly, "She had a cyanide capsule in her mouth a long time ago, and now she has committed suicide out of fear of crime." The situation is already very clear. There are indeed insiders who leaked information to Eclipse Moon. But Zhu Zheng doesn't understand why someone would become a traitor, even if he dies. What is all this for? But at the moment, Zhu Zheng has no intention of tracking down those things, because Zhang Yi is facing a very huge crisis at this time. Eclipse Moon and the Tianlong pirates have joined forces to set up a huge trap to hunt them down. Can the Samsara team go over to support them? Lan Xinqing replied, "They are in Tianhai City. It will take at least half an hour to go. Over there. The battle has already started over there with 2 Yunlai, and they can't support them." Zhu Zheng gritted his teeth and said to Zhang Yi, "Try to delay the time. I will let the Samsara team go over to support you immediately." Zhang Yi's eyes were cold. He realized that something was wrong. After all, he still touched the cake of some people, so that they wanted him dead. But how could it be so easy to kill him? Zhang Yi didn't believe anyone, including Zhu Zheng. So, he directly cut off the call with the headquarters. This abrupt action made Zhu Zheng stunned, but he was not qualified to be angry about other people's actions. He thought that the Blizzard City, which was impregnable, actually had Eclipse Moon's spies. This was his responsibility as the commander. Even if Zhang Yi suspected him, it was reasonable. After Zhang Yi cut off the call, he immediately said to everyone around him, "An undercover agent of Eclipse Moon has appeared in the headquarters. From now on, everything will follow my command and stop contacting the headquarters." The current situation is very obvious. This is a trap waiting for Zhang Yi and others to get in. They can't trust anyone now. They can only believe in their own strength. Gao Changkong was still saying to Zhang Yi, "We will rush over soon. You hold on for a while. Don't be in trouble." Zhang Yi didn't say anything and cut off Gao Changkong's communication. He couldn't tell who was a human and who was a ghost. In short, we should win this battle first. Feng Guangyuan stood on a low hill and lit a cigarette for himself. Let's get started. Eclipse Moon and the Tianlong pirates joined forces. With such a powerful force, it is absolutely possible to destroy an investigation team. What's more, the Tengu squad is also recognized as the weakest investigation team. Captain Zhang Yi, the official power index rating is only 8,200 points. Even the team was put together temporarily. In Blizzard City, Zhu Zheng asked Lan Xinqing to investigate whether there were any traitors in the city, and at the same time ordered the Samsara squad to quickly go to Tianhai City for support. What can he do now? Nothing. It is impossible to use missiles or the god of death of love to attack indiscriminately because Zhang Yi and the others are also there. He can only watch quietly, hoping that Zhang Yi can hold on until the Samsara squad comes to rescue. On the battlefield, the attack of Eclipse Moon and the Tianlong pirates has begun. The first person to take action was Jinguji Saikairo. He took out 10 talismans from his pocket, threw them into the air, and then pinched the seal with his right hand. I command all gods, all Tathagata, God-given Dharma body, hurry up as the law commands. 10 white talismans emitted a layer of white smoke in the air and then turned into 10 black hounds. This is a kind of shikigami that Zhang Yi has never seen before. They are as black as ink, giving people a sense of evil and horror. 10 demon dogs roared and pounced on Zhang Yi. Although Zhang Yi didn't know what their abilities were, as long as the dimensional door was opened, all their attacks would become illusory. In a flash, all 10 black demon dogs were taken into the different space by Zhang Yi. But at this moment, Zhang Yi saw the corner of Jinguji Saikairo's mouth raised. Different dimensional space. It can absorb everything, but the amount it can carry is limited. Just pour more energy into it than the limit to destroy it. He put his right middle finger and index finger together, put them to his mouth, and shouted in a deep voice, "Destroys." Zhang Yi felt that in his different dimensional space, the 10 demon dogs seemed to sense something and suddenly exploded violently. This was the shikigami that Jinguji Saikairo specially made to deal with Zhang Yi's different space ability, the self-destructing demon dog. Sensing the explosion in the different space, Zhang Yi was also a little moved, because the energy contained in these demon dogs is very terrifying. At the same time, he also understood one thing. His intelligence was also told to the people of Eclipse Moon by the insider. This is a hunt for him, just like the hunt for Deng Shintong before. Someone wants Deng Shintong to disappear from Jiangnan district first. Someone also wants Zhang Yi to disappear from Jiangnan district. Zhang Yi's eyes were particularly cold, even colder than the ice and snow between heaven and earth at this time. But after Jinguji Saikairo confidently used the self-destructing magic dog, he found that Zhang Yi was not affected at all. He took a few steps back in surprise. How is it possible? The equivalent of the detonator I used is as much as 2 tons of TNT. Even a captain-level figure would choose to avoid a self-destructing magic dog of this equivalent, and would not dare to confront it. Could it be that the information is wrong? Jinguji Saikairo's forehead rarely left a drop of sweat. This kind of thing was beyond his expectations, and things that were out of his control made him panic. Dear viewers, I will appreciate if you like this content. Please comment on the video and like. Also, it will help if you will subscribe.